Let me start the class. Today we are going to learn about the economic survey. Both the volumes we are going to cover in our class, volume 1 and volume 2. And then today the class is live streamed. The class is going to be attended by our students as well as the students not from our academy. So in a normal class, the students know about how we used to handle the class. So when you have any doubts, so in between, okay, looking at your messages, we used to clarify your doubts. But now the class is going to be attended by the mix of students, the current year students as well as the past year students. So sometimes the doubt what you ask may not be relevant to the others, but that's not the nature with the regular class. So considering those factors, if you have any doubt, so you need not hesitate to ask your doubt. You can ask, but the doubts will be clarified at the end of the session by 5 o'clock. Okay, this is the small piece of information what I would like to convey to you before starting the class. Okay, students, now let me get into the class. And then regarding the class, I'm going to take the class with the help of the slides. And the slides is for the notes taking purpose. And taking the content from the slides, I'm going to explain the concepts of economic survey. And then if you wish to write, it's up to you. You can write, you can copy the notes from the slides. Or else what you can do means after the session gets over, after all the sessions, volume 1 and 2, if all the classes gets over, then we'll be giving you or we'll be sending you the contents in the PDF format or in the text format. Contents will be sent to you. So that's your choice. So you need not waste your time in copying the contents in the slide. And then the graph you can copy. So and then with reference to the graph or the charts what we have in the economic survey, already we have given you the soft copy material of volume 1 and 2, which is in a concise format. We have already given you a 200-page document. So you can use it as a reference material. So the class, you can listen to the things. And the class is going to be very helpful for prelim, mains, as well as interview. So the session has been titled as Economic Survey for Prelims. Yes, that's true. But not only for the prelims, because we cannot exactly say that economic survey is meant only for the prelims. So economic survey is a master document which will help you in all stages of your examination, prelim, main, as well as interview. So the class is structured in such a way is going to help you for your prelims, as well as for main, as well as for your interview when you are trying to give your opinion. So the things what you learn from this class will definitely help you when you try to answer the questions in the interview, main, as well as the preliminary examination. Okay. So now let me start the class. So we are going to have sessions on volume 1 and 2. Before getting into the class, let me make a clear-cut explanation to you. What you can expect out of the session and what you cannot expect from the session. Or else in other words, what is going to be the focus of the session and what is not going to be the focus of the session. For example, economic survey can be understood in two methods. One is we should develop a conceptual understanding of economic survey. And then second thing is we have to develop a factual understanding of economic survey. Because it is a book full of facts. So one side, certain type of questions like how the trend is. For example, whether trend is declining, trend is increasing, or how India perform when compared with the other countries. Like that, you should have some factual awareness. But sometimes the concepts are also discussed in the economic survey. So two things we are going to deal in our class, both the factual segment and the conceptual segment. Now for your information, you all would have received the soft copy document from our institute, which is a bundle of 200 pages. So you can refer that document for your factual awareness, because in my opinion, as a faculty, I feel that if the students are given the factual material in their hands in the format of the PDF document or in a piece of paper, usually you can understand the fact from the documents what you have given to you. But that's not the case with the concept. Sometimes the students, they need the help of the faculty to understand the concept. So I'm going to completely use the session to explain you the concepts which are explained in the economic survey. So not only the factual part, because factual part means it's easy to the faculty point of view. But the student side, sometimes, okay, the conceptual questions you may not be able to attend. So the class is going to be a mix of conceptual understanding as well as the factual understanding for the prelim, main, as well as the interview. So now, you can have a look at the slide. We are going to learn about 2 volumes. So students, kindly have a look at the slide. This will help you to understand what is going to be the focus of this session. This you must understand. What I have in your mind, you should understand. So to explain the concepts of survey, prelim as well as the mains point of view, the sessions what we are going to have today and tomorrow, session is going to deliver the conceptual understanding. Then sir, what about the facts? Economic survey is a book of facts. So what is going to be about the facts? To convey the facts of survey that we are going to do, but the document is already given to you. So some of the facts which are most important will be given. All the other minor facts, you can have a look at the document in your with the self preparation. You can have a look at the document. But other important facts I am going to deliver in the class. So this is the expectation what you can have about the session. Okay, so with this basic information about the session, let me get into the remaining part of the session. What the session won't focus. Now comes the most important question, students. What the session won't focus. This you should have the understanding. Otherwise, students may start attending the class with the expectation that the session is going to deliver me these things. I expected these things, but these things are not delivered. Okay, I want to make a clear-cut information about that at the start itself. Normally, economic survey is a book which explains about multiple concepts, about the monetary developments of economy, about the external sector, about the inflation, about the fiscal developments of economy, about agriculture. So these are the different topics which are dealt in economic survey. If I start teaching the inflation, then naturally it is the tendency of the faculty, assuming that the students should have the basic understanding of the basic concept. So I may start explaining the basic concept. What is meant by inflation? What is meant by creeping inflation? What is meant by runaway inflation? What is reflation? But these things already you have prepared during your preparation days. But now you are attending the class with the hope that this class is going to deliver you the important segments, the important points with regard to economic survey. So here I am not going to waste your time by teaching you once again the basic things what you have learnt in your classrooms or during your prelim preparation. So the class is not going to explain you once again the basics. For example, while explaining about the monetary developments of economy, I won't explain what is meant by CRR, what is meant by SLR, what is meant by MSF, because already these things are known to you. The same angle when explain about inflation, what is CPI, what is WPI, giving a small idea about those things, then getting into inflation. It will consume a lot of time because we got enormous basic concepts. So here the economic survey, I'm going to deal about the most important topics which are given in the economic survey document. And apart from that, I'm not going to the other things. Sometimes it may be relevant from the student's point of view. Sir, if you explain the basics, it's fine. Then it may consume more than 10 number of classes. So otherwise, I have to compromise with the core essence. So the core essence, I don't want to dilute. So I'm going to be more focused on the things which are given in the economic survey in the year 2020-21. Okay, so in this document, what are the things mentioned that we are going to learn, not about the other basic things. So, but when the survey demands the explanation of the basic things, then without doubt, I'll explain the basic things. But without the demand, I won't get into the basics. This idea you should have in your mind. Okay, students, so this explanation of basic concepts will not be done in the session. The next thing is, okay, you all know that economic survey is published by the Ministry of Finance in 2 volumes, volume 1 and volume 2. What the volume 1 is all about, what the volume 2 is all about. As a UPSC aspirant, which volume I should focus on? For the preliminary examination, which volume is more important? For the main examination, which volume is more important? So these questions normally arise in your mind. For those questions, you should have the understanding what the volume 1 is all about, what the volume 2 is all about. This understanding you should have a complete clarity in your mind. So what the volume 1 is all about means, you all know that economic survey is actually released by the Ministry of Finance and prepared by the Chief Economic Advisor. These basic things you know about the basic things. Now what the volume 1 is all about, why the government is releasing 2 documents? Why can't they release a single volume document, volume 1 and 2 combined in a single volume? So the purpose of the volume 1 is, when you look at the volume 1, when you read the volume 1, you will understand the issues of the economy. So the developments happening in the country. For example, last year, what issues we had in the banking sector, what issues we had in the fiscal sector, what issues we had in the overall economy. For example, we had pandemic. During the pandemic, what were the measures taken by the government? In the fiscal front, what were the issues faced by the government? So these things are analyzed by the economic survey. So it is more insightful to the people, those who are making the policy, and then the people, those who are criticizing the government, for them giving some opinion. So this is the reason why we took this measure. So the economic survey acts as a document which gives answers to the critics, which opens new views for the academicians and policymakers, for all the people. So it's very useful. So the volume 1 talks about the most of the things which happens in the economy. So it analyzes those topics and then presents in the form of a document. Then what the volume 2 is all about? Volume 2, it gives some idea about the state of the economy. What is the picture of economy? What are the developments? What are the trends? So what are the developments in fiscal sector? What are the developments in monetary sector? What are the developments in the inflation picture of our economy? So how does our current account look like? What is the recent development? What is the trend in India's exports? What is the trend in India's imports? These things you can infer from volume 2. So from this basic explanation or basic information, what you can understand about the economic survey is, volume 1 is highly helpful during the main examination. When you have a complete understanding of the volume 1, then definitely you can attend many number of questions, any number of questions or many questions in the main examination. So volume 1 gives more insights about the economy. You can use those points. You can use them as a reference. When you use them as a reference in economic survey, for example, 5 questions, if you get a chance to use the points in economic survey, then definitely you'll get 1 mark for the quotes or the references, what you've taken from economic survey. Definitely you may get some 5 marks when compared to your competitors. So the economic survey is going to play a crucial role in the, volume 1 is going to play a crucial role in the main examination and also in prelims. But volume 2 is going to play a huge role in the prelims. It does not mean that it won't be helpful in the main examination. Also it is helpful, but relatively. Volume 1 has got more importance in the main examination. Volume 2 has got relatively more importance in the preliminary examination. This is a basic experience. When you look at the previous year questions, you may understand this. Most of the questions from the prelim come from the volume 2, but most of the questions in the main examination come from volume 1 as well as volume 2, but the major focus is on volume 1 in the main examination. So the session has been titled as Economic Survey Volume 1 and 2 for prelim examination. But no, we are not going to decode only for the prelim examination. This class is going to act as a one-stop reference both for the prelim as well as for the main examination. So this is the basic information what I wanted to give. Now we have given those basic things. Now let me get into the survey. Now let's start the class with the volume 1. What the volume 1 document has talked about our economy. What are the things, most important things? Now the basic question, so which should come on your mind is, sir, I'm going to spend 2 hours 30 minutes with you today. What is going to be my outcome? Because I'm going to spend my valuable 2 hours 30 minutes with you by looking at your video. What is going to be my outcome? So the outcome I can answer your question in a more appropriate manner by showing you some questions. Why the questions? Why I'm bringing those questions? Now I want you to have a look at those questions. Now you can have a look at those questions. Sometimes you may have some idea about the questions, what I'm showing you now. But some of you may not have any idea about the questions, what I'm showing on the board. But at the end of the session, definitely all the students, those who attended the session, will be able to come out with the answers for the questions, what I'm showing you now. Now I'm going to show you some sample questions, so which can be framed according to the demand of the prelim examination or according to the frame of the main examination. I'm going to show you some 9 or 10 questions. We can have a look at the questions. I give 30 seconds or 20 seconds time for each and every question. You just brainstorm your mind whether you know answers for those questions or not. Because these are the things which are discussed in detail in each and every chapters, or in each chapter 1 or 2 topics are dealt. Those topics I brought them in the manner of form of questions. You can have a look at the questions. So at the end of the session, I confidently you will say that, sir, I know the answers for these questions. If they ask these questions in the prelims, I'll be able to identify or eliminate the options. Or same questions asked in the main examination, definitely I could write 10 mark question or 12.5 mark question. Any question I could answer. That confidence will be able to develop after attending the session. Okay, that is the outcome what you are going to get out of the session. Now kindly have a look at the question session, students. Then we can get into the chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, one by one. Let's learn about the survey. Now the question number 1. These are not the questions framed by me. You should have the understanding. These are the questions which are discussed in an elaborate manner or in a more analytical manner in the economic survey in the document 1, volume 1. So kindly have a look at the question, students. Number 1. Do you have any answers for this question? You may have, you may not have. So my worry is not that. My duty is you should be able to get answer for this question at the end of the session. Now what the question is all about, which one to be followed in an economy? What is the right measure in an economy? Whether pro-cyclical measure or counter-cyclical measure during recession. So what is the right measure? The questions can be converted into preliminary form of statements, may be asked in the preliminary examination, or it may be converted into mains form of questions, may be asked in the main examination, or the questions may be thrown at you in the interview also. So this is the conceptual understanding. It's not a factual question. For this, I should explain you what is meant by pro-cyclical, what is meant by counter-cyclical, why the things are desired during the session. I should justify. So these things, when they asked in the main examination, then you may be able to come out with the statements which may help you to substantiate your answer. So this is a one sample question. So I shown to you. Now kindly have a look at the next question. You can copy, or else all the things, whatever I am showing on the board except the charts, everything will be delivered to you in the text format. Need not worry. Okay, so everything will be sent to you either to Telegram channel or whatever mode we are sending you the contents. Okay, so you can copy or need not copy. Okay, that's your choice. Okay, so now next question. Kindly have a look at the next question, students. Now I'm not going to tell you the answers. The answer is the class what I'm going to take. Okay, so in the class, once I take the class, at the end of the session, the same questions I'm going to show to you. But at the time, you'll be able to give the answers. Okay, that's the outcome of the class. Now, second one. Have a look at the question, students. Regulatory forbearance is good or bad? First, you should understand, sir, what is meant by regulatory forbearance. You should know about the meaning of the regulatory forbearance, because it is a chapter in economic survey. I think chapter number 7. So this chapter has taken this point and discusses about this point in an elaborate manner. So the question is, regulatory forbearance is good or bad? If good, then why? If it is bad, then why? The next question is, what were its impacts on Indian economy? So this, you should have the conceptual understanding. So this understanding will definitely give you the confidence to write any type of questions either in the prelim or in the mains examination. So once we get into, when we get into the chapter number 7, you'll be able to get answer for this question. So for that, we have to wait up to the chapter number 7. Okay, now to question number 3. Look at the question, students. What is the correlation between growth and inequality on socio-economic outcomes? So what the question is, what is the connection between growth and inequality on socio-economic outcomes? First, you have to interpret the question in the right manner. What impact the growth will have on the socio-economic outcomes, which means when the growth improves, what will happen to the socio-economic outcomes? Then, when the inequality improves, what the inequality will do on the socio-economic outcomes, what it will do on the health outcomes, what it will do on the education parameters, what it will do on the infant mortality rate, what it will do on the MMR. So what is the connection? Is the connection same for India with other countries? So do we experience the same connection? So the question is, positively connected or negatively connected? Is the correlation same for India and other advanced economies? So here I am going to put you some economic evidence, historical economic evidence, which is going to justify whether what is the connection we have. So this is a very important understanding what you should have. This is explained in the economic survey volume 1. Next comes the next question. So these are not the questions what I framed by me out of the economic survey. These are the things which are discussed in an elaborate manner in the economic survey volume 1. I think this one is discussed in the chapter 4. The entire crux of chapter 4 is about this question. Now comes the question number 4. Students, take time, think for a while about the question. Then only when I explain about this concept, your questions will come on your mind. When I teach the concept, having the question in your mind, then looking at my explanation, you'll get the answers. So I want you to think, okay? Think about these questions. Answers, you'll understand through the session. Now, 4th one. Which one is lacking for India? What we don't have? What is a problem in India? Because many times we think that India is a country where people are not following the regulation, because that is a mindset we have, no? India is a country where the people are not following the regulations. And sometimes we think that India is a country where we don't have proper rules, because these things normally we always think like that. One is, our people are not obeying the rules. Second angle, what we think, interpret is, India is a country where we don't have proper rules. We don't have. We think in this way. But the reality, what is the reality? So look at the question, reality, everything we'll see in the session. Now look at the question, what we lack, what we don't have in our economy. One is regulatory requirements, either we don't have or we don't have the compliance. What is the problem in India? If I ask the question, now you may or may not have answer in your mind. But at the end of the session, you'll be able to come out with the answer. Sir, we have got this, we have this in our economy, we don't have this in our economy. This is the problem of our economy. So any type of questions, you may be able to answer with the help of the thing what you're going to learn. So this is the chapter number 6, I think. Process reforms. Okay, that is the heading of the chapter number 6. So what we don't have, and then how good we are in regulatory effectiveness. So here if you ask this question, or else, just students, you try to convert this into the questions. India is performing better in regulatory effectiveness when compared to the other economies. If it is given in the question as a question format in the prelims, you should have the understanding whether we are good or bad enough. So what is our position? All these things are given in a beautiful manner in the economic survey that we are going to learn. This is question number 4. Now the next one, question number 5. Look at the question. Does sovereign credit rating reflect the economic fundamentals of a country? Look at the question, because we all know that ratings means we are giving some, we all know the ratings means by looking at some fundamentals or parameters, indicators, we give some rating, AAA, AA, like that we give rating. So when the ratings are announced, we understand that ratings reflect the fundamentals. So is it true? Because it's a basic understanding what we have. Ratings reflect the fundamentals. That is a basic understanding what we normally have in our mind. But the economic survey asks this question. Really, the ratings, do they reflect the fundamentals? Is it true or wrong? So this question is asked by the economic survey, and economic survey justifies whether it's reflecting or not reflecting. What was the impact of the sovereign rating on India's performance? So like these questions are asked in the economic survey. So this was one type of question. Next one, I think this is chapter number 3 or 4. I don't remember the exact serial number. Next one. Does growth lead to, this is a very important question, students. You should have because both in the prelim as well as the main, you should have a thorough understanding about the debt to GDP, debt sustainability or debt to GDP ratio. Because you would have learned about what is meant by debt to GDP. A country should have a strong debt sustainability. So debt should not rise for the country. Like this is a normal understanding what we have. But here the question is, does growth lead to debt sustainability? So here now I'm only asking the question, students, don't worry. So when we get into the session, chapter 1, 2 and 3, one by one, you will be able to arrive at the answers automatically. So that is the purpose of the class. So now just I'm throwing you the question. So don't think that I'm just showing you the question. I'm not telling you the answers because the class is structured in such a way, I want to ignite your mind with the questions. So now, does growth lead to debt sustainability or vice versa? Which means whether the growth will lead to sustainability or debt sustainability will lead to growth in the economy. Next one is if yes, answer is yes, then what evidences we have to substantiate our arguments? So it's a type of mains question which can be asked in the main examination or it may be asked in the prelim format also. Now comes the next one. What is the right time to press the growth accelerator during demand and supply shock? This question may appear as a simple one. So what is the question? What is the right time to press the growth accelerator or demand accelerator when the economy is in a slowdown? What is the right time? Sometimes we may think that when the problem comes in, okay, you just press the accelerator. But here government comes out with a different perspective. What is the right time? It is not about pressing the accelerator. Now look at the interpretation of the government. Government says that pressing the accelerator when the brakes are on. When the brakes are on, you are pressing the accelerator. It won't yield results. First, you should take the pedal, okay, from the legs from the brake, then only you have to press the accelerator. So when the brakes are on, there is no use of pressing the accelerator. So what is the right time to press the growth accelerator or demand accelerator or investment accelerator? So it is answered in the economic survey document. So now comes the next question. Now this one is a very simple one. We all know the answers because that is the thing what we are experiencing in our life. Saving lives or livelihoods. Which one is important for the government during the pandemic or during recession? Short-term pain or long-term gain. The trade-off between the short-term pain or long-term gain. Whether the long-term pain and short-term gain is important or short-term pain versus the long-term gain is important. Okay. So here what argument we have? So that is the question number 9. Then comes the question number 10. Will higher, this is a very important question, will higher public expenditure always lead to crowding out in an economy? Because we all know about the crowding out. Now the question is, will always the higher public expenditure, will it always lead to the crowding out in economy? So here the survey comes with the excellent answers. Crowding out is explained in different perspective. So it is not about stopping the government expenditure. Sometimes the government expenditure will avoid the crowding out. It may enable the crowding in. So what are the answers? What is justification given by the government? Everything is explained in the volume 1 document. So here we are going to find the answers for all these questions with the help of the survey document. So we are going to start the session on volume 1 now. So now the chapter 1, I'm going to explain all the chapters in the orderly manner. I'm not going to shuffle the chapters. So sometimes shuffling may be important, may be important. So it may be comfortable to the faculty side also. So here, okay, but to give you complete reading experience, because I'm going to give you complete understanding and complete reading experience of economic survey. So to do that, I'm going to explain all the chapters in the orderly manner. Chapter 1, so volume 1 has got 10 chapters. Volume 2 has got 10 chapters. Volume 1 first chapter and volume 2 first chapter. Both the first chapters talks about the COVID, about the pandemic situation. Apart from that, all the other chapters talks about the other scenarios. So we're going to learn about all the chapters in the orderly manner. Now I'm going to start the chapter number 1. Okay, so this is the brief introduction. Now till now I have given you introduction about the economic survey. Now starts the class on economic survey with the chapter number 1. Okay. First, the chapter number 1, kindly copy the heading, students. What is heading of the chapter number 1 is? Kindly copy the heading. Saving lives and livelihoods amidst a once-in-a-century crisis. Nothing to be dealt here because the title itself has conveyed us what is the scenario. Okay, now comes the question. Why we call this as a once-in-a-century crisis? Because there should be some economic justification for that. On what basis we call this as a once-in-a-century crisis? So now you look at the next slide. Here you may observe that only during the period of the Great Depression, only during the years of 1930s, at that time more than 90% of the economies suffered. Which means economically more than 90% of the economies, they suffered. Here look at the graph. So here more than 90% of the economies, and here more than 90% of the economies, they suffered during this period, which means during 1930s they suffered the years of Great Depression. Then we are suffering now. So we call this as a once-in-a-century crisis, a economic answer, because we know about the general meaning, but I like to convey the meaning in the economic perspective. So why do we call this as a once-in-a-century economic crisis? Because economically we had the damage during the years of Great Depression, then we are having the damage at present. So this is the explanation for the once-in-a-century crisis term. Now comes the next one. We all know about the stringent measures followed by the government to control the pandemic. So we got into the lockdown measures, then gradual unlocking, everything we implemented in our economy. So what was the logic behind the lockdown? So it was understood from the Spanish flu experience. So the survey says that from the Spanish flu experience, when you have the higher population density during the onset of a wave or during the spread of a virus or spread of a disease. So when you have the higher population density, then you may have the rapid spread of the disease. So to control that, you should start the lockdown as soon as possible, because it is not the thing what we tested only during the COVID-19 times. This was the global experience during the times of Spanish flu. So that is the thing which is conveyed in the next slide. So higher the population density, then rapid is the spread. So this made the government to go for the lockdown. So here, students, this may not be based on the economic perspective or not, because the first chapter is only about the COVID-19. We all know about the COVID-19. We all know about the procedures. But here the government has talked about the COVID-19 along with the measures taken by the government. So we cannot skip the chapter. So I'm giving a brief idea about the things. So here it may appear as a points which are known to you, but we cannot skip the chapter. So I'm giving a small idea. So maybe 5 or 10 minutes we'll be spending on the chapter 1. Then we'll be getting into the core chapters like core chapter 2, 3, 4, 5. Now the next one. So here in this chapter, government says that when the pandemic happened in our country, our government was having certain questions on its mind. What were the questions? Whether to save the lives of the people or to save the livelihoods of the people. Because when you save the lives, you have to impose the lockdown. When you impose the lockdown, people are getting affected economically. When you do this, then the people criticize the government for the lockdown. When you do the unlocking procedures, then people blame the government for the spread of the disease. So here government was having a confusion at the time. The government was having a dilemma. So what was that? Either to save the life or to save the livelihood. For that, the government came with the answer. Saving lives was much more important than livelihoods. Then what was the logic? What was the rationale behind it? We all know that. Because lives once lost, we cannot get it back. But the economy, once it goes down, it can be revived back. So example, the V-shaped recovery, which was explained in the economic survey. But actually after the second wave, the V-shaped recovery undergone one more downturn, then it bounced back. Okay, that is the remaining part of the story. But according to the economic survey, government says, here the government focused on the lives rather than the livelihoods, because lives are more important than livelihoods. Livelihoods can be revived back, but not the lives. Okay, that is the initial part of the chapter 1. Then I already told you, government accepted the short-term pain for the long-term gains. Long-term gains economy is going to make, but the people should undergo the short-term pain. So that is the crux of this slide. Then these are the basic points. Okay, other things you need not copy. The contents will be delivered to you. Now the next one. So as I told you, our economy had witnessed V-shaped recovery after the slowdown. So our growth went in this, for example, look at the point, 23.9% during the lockdown. Then when the government implemented the gradual unlocking, then our economy had witnessed 7.5. It does not mean that 7.5 positive growth. So here we had minus 23.9, then we had minus 7.5. So then you know about the rest of the growth story because you would have learned the paper. So after that we had 0.4% growth, then 1.6% for Q3, Q4, remaining part of the story. But here the economic survey mentioned only about the Q1 and Q2 developments. So this you should remember. But for your practical understanding, what happened after the second wave is, because the survey was published by the government, when the first wave got stopped by the government, it was controlled by the government. But after the second wave, once again we had the V. That's all. We cannot exactly blame, because we went down. Then once again we bounced back. Okay, which maybe as a V, maybe as a W. That's the interpretation what we may have. But the thing explained in the survey, it came true even after the second wave, which means that we are having a strong fundamentals. We just got the capabilities of bouncing back after any downturns. So when any problem comes in, because the pandemic has been considered by the government as a worst case scenario. What we do in the worst case scenario is to minimize the loss, because you cannot stop the loss, but you have to minimize the loss. That's the measure taken by the government. Okay, these are the points which are conveyed in the initial pages of chapter 1. Then students, kindly have a look at the multiple indicators of our country. Chapter 1 says that most of the indicators, starting from India's purchasing manager index and IIP index, most of the indicators, growth index, all the index, it revived back after the lockdown. So this is the interpretation what you should have in your mind. Our economy has got the fundamentals of bouncing back after the failures. So that is the only point what you can take from this V-shaped recovery point. So then comes the next one. You can take hints, students, because all the other things we will send you the soft copy. The graphs alone, you can just copy. You can take the hints. All the theoretical things what you have in the board will be sent to you. And apart from that, already we have given you the document 1 and 2 in the soft copy format. You can use that also. Okay, students, now comes the most important conceptual question, or the confusion what the government was having in our economy regarding the revival procedure. Now look at this point. In a normal economic crisis, policy support is rendered to stimulate aggregate demand as quickly as possible. What is the meaning of this point? You should have the more understanding about this point. For example, whenever there is a slowdown, as soon as you act, for example, there is a slowdown. So what you will do, you will implement the expansionary fiscal policy or expansionary monetary policy. You'll increase the money supply. When you do that, then you'll be having the corresponding the demand increase in the economy. The demand increase will stimulate the economy. That is a normal scenario. Look at the point, students. When you have a downturn, demand would have went down. So to accelerate the demand, you have to implement either expansionary monetary policy or expansionary fiscal policy. But that's not the case with the pandemic downturn, because in a normal downturn, normal recession, economy witnesses either supply side disruptions or demand side disruptions. Look at this point. In a normal scenario, you have either supply side downturn or demand side. When you have the demand side, you will focus on the demand side. When you have the supply side, you will focus on supply side. But during this COVID crisis, India witnessed, not only India, all the countries across the globe, they had witnessed both supply side as well as the demand side disruptions. So what is the right method? So normal methodology, normal measure, what we follow during the normal recession, it could not be applied during this COVID crisis. So what is the right measure? For example, here, the supply side constraints what we have, it should be addressed first. For example, you don't have all the productive capabilities of our economy. It got affected, which means we got the supply shock in the economy, which means we got less goods. During this time, when you increase the money supply, then what may happen? You got supply side disruptions. When you are trying to increase the money supply of the economy, then more money will start chasing the few goods. Then this will lead to inflation in the economy. So the survey document 1 says that many people, they criticize the government that government was not implementing the expansionary policy like that. But government was having the view. What was the view? We were having supply side constraints. Without increasing the supply, when you increase the money supply, then more money will start chasing the few goods. This will lead to runaway inflation or galloping inflation in the economy. Then we have to control that. Then once again, we have to implement the contractionary policies. Are you clear with this point? So what is the right choice? What is the right measure? First, we have to improve the supply side constraints. Temporary adjustments or temporary constraints or permanent constraints, everything we have to address. Then after bringing the supply side or productive capabilities to the normal level, then we have to improve the demand side. Demand side, how we can improve? Either through monetary procedures or through the fiscal procedures. So that's the approach. So here, this approach is explained by the government or explained by the document in this way. How they have explained? They are saying that supply side disruptions are like applying the brakes. So when the brakes are applied, you cannot press the accelerator. First, try to remove the brakes, then press the accelerator. So this is the economic logic behind the measures taken by the government. You should have the understanding. This point you can use in the examination. So this is not only about we are talking about the government, or we are praising the government or criticizing the government. That's not my motive. Okay, always we will take the neutral stand. It is about having the economic understanding. What is the economic understanding? So normal crisis, we have either demand side or supply side. But here we had supply side and demand side. So without focusing on the supply side, it's not good to focus on the demand side. So that is the understanding what you should have. So now this slide talks about this picture. So now look at this point, students. Reflating of the economy, which means pumping the money supply into the economy without focusing on the supply side may have inflationary pressures. Okay, we are justifying the government's view. Then comes the next one. Supply side reforms were undertaken to improve the productive capacities of the economy. So this was the measure taken by the government. So it is discussed in the document, it is analyzed in the document, and this document acts as the answers to the multiple questions asked by many experts as well as many critics. So now comes the next one. Look at this point. Many times we have the view that our government did not spend much during the COVID crisis, or we were following some contractionary policy, or when compared to the other countries, we are not spending more money. That's why our economy is taking more time to recover. Like that, many things were discussed in the paper as well as in the media. But what is the answer given by the economic survey? Economic survey gives the answer by saying that, now look at the chart. Here, when we are having the supply side crisis, government did not increase the expenditures in our economy. The expenditure part was very lower, which means here the brakes are applied. Here we were having the supply side disruptions. But once the supply side, it got addressed, then government started pumping in more money into the economy. So we were expansionary during this phase, and we were not expansionary because if we were expansionary, then this it would have led to runaway or galloping or whatever may be. So this is the example. Okay, this of which fiscal picture which explains the decision taken by the government. So this how we can understand the exam point of view is government pumped in or government spent more expenditures or public expenditures, it got increased after addressing the supply side constraints. Okay, that is understanding what you should develop from this slide. Okay, then these things and all, just we can have a look at the slide, because already we all know about the Atmanirbhar package and about the stimulating measures announced by the government. Just to give you some idea, I have mentioned about some of the measures. So not only the Atmanirbhar stimulus package, about the other reforms taken by the government, because this survey says that if there is a crisis, there is an opportunity. What is the opportunity? Sometimes many reforms we'd have failed to take because of the situation which is not that much conducive. But sometimes recession, even though it is economic downturn, it offers opportunities to take some bold decisions. So in that way, government undertook many reforms. So these are things were mentioned in the document. So in this angle, I am completing the chapter number 1. I have not given much more time. Only I talked about 1 or 2 points. What is why we call it as a once in a century crisis? Then why the lockdown was initiated by the government. Example, the Spanish flu experience. We are able to control with the help of the lockdown during that time. Then we talked about what was the choice of the government, how the government planned to control the pandemic, what measures were taken by the government, either to stimulate the demand or the supply. Then when the government increased the expenditures, these are the things what we have discussed in the chapter 1. These things are discussed in a more elaborate manner in the chapter 1. Even when you read the chapter, the same understanding you will develop after reading the chapter 1. This is the understanding. Okay, now you just, I'll give you 5 seconds time. You just try to, so load the concept in your mind. Okay, what is chapter 1 is all about? Chapter 1, it talks about the pandemic, once in a century crisis. Then it tells about the need for lockdown. Then when the government accelerated the demand. So because we were having both supply side and demand side constraints, why the government did not accelerate the demand during initial stages? Because it will lead to runaway inflation. Then when the government increased the expenditures, because of this, later on India witnessed the V-shaped recovery. And then about the Atmanirbhar package. These are the things you have to remember with regard to the chapter number 1. Now we are going to get into the chapter number 2, which is more economic in nature, because this is not only economic first chapter, it talked about the pandemic, which things is known to us. But second one gives much more insights. So we are going to get into the chapter number 2, students. Okay, chapter number 2. What the chapter number 2 is all about? Kindly copy the heading. This is the title of the chapter number 2. Okay, students. Now, look at the title of the chapter number 2. Does growth lead to debt sustainability? Yes, but not vice versa. Which means survey has given the answer itself in the heading itself. What is the answer? Growth lead to debt sustainability. But the debt sustainability will not lead to the growth. Okay, that's the answer given in the question. They ask the question, they given the answer, not vice versa. Now we should have the economic understanding, what they are talking about. So here much more insights are given by the economic advisor. So he has talked about many more things. You will enjoy when you read the things. Okay. Always in economics we have the two pole arguments. So same thing can be, or we can counter argue also. But here the things are explained in such a beautiful way. So what are the economic evidences? How the argument is placed in the document is, first of all we should understand what is meant by the growth. We all know. Next one, what is meant by debt sustainability? It is the ability of a country to repay the debts. When the debt repayment ability is higher, it's good sign for the economy. When the debts are increasing, then the country will get into a debt trap. which means we have to borrow to repay the debts. That's a normal basic understanding what you should have. Here the survey brings a very important concept. What is the concept? Here they have brought a term called as IRGD. This you should have the understanding. Maybe asked directly in the preliminary examination. What the term IRGD is all about is IRGD. So what is IRGD is interest rate, IR, interest rate, G for growth, D for differential. Interest rate versus the growth difference. That's the understanding. But the exact expansion is interest rate, growth, differential. Okay, the difference. So now what is the understanding? Everything is given in the slide, or else just, if I show the slide, then you will start writing the slide. That's why I'm not showing the slide. First listen, then you can copy the slide. So here what is meant by IRGD is, this IRGD, it says that, or argues that, for example, if a country is borrowing at a rate of, now look at the point, if a country is borrowing at a rate of, a country is borrowing at the rate of 7%. 7 is the rate at which the country is borrowing. 7%. Now the growth of a country is around 9%, which means you borrowed loans at the rate of 7%, but the growth rate of your country is around 9%. Now what is the IRGD? IRGD is 7 is the rate at which you borrowed the money, then the growth is 9%, which means 7 minus 9, the answer is minus 2%. Minus 2. Now according to the economic survey, as long as you have this IRGD in the negative zone, which means 7 minus 9 is minus 2%, as long as the IRGD is negative, you need not worry about the debts, or you need not worry about the borrowings, what you are doing in the economy. Look at the point. First understand the concept. I have not explained the fact, students. So here the point is, the rate at which you are borrowing the loan is the, you may borrow at particular rate of interest. So interest rate is 7, then the growth is 9. Growth rate, for example, the growth what you achieved during the particular year is 9%. So interest rate minus growth is around minus 2%. As long as you have the interest rate growth difference in the negative territory, you need not worry about whether you can sustain the debt or not. You will sustain, don't worry, which means it is giving a clean go ahead to the government. You proceed with the borrowing. As long as you are able to have growth in the economy, you need not worry about the borrowing. Actually, it's a counter argument, students. So look at the points. Actually, it's a counter argument. Normally what we have, you can have growth only when you have the debt at the control level. Look at the interpretation. Normal interpretation, what we have in our mind is, when we have the debt at the controlled level, then only we can have the growth. For example, when you borrow more money, then you cannot achieve the growth. That's a normal logic what we have in the mind. But here the survey places the counter argument. What is the counter argument? When you have the interest rate growth difference in the negative zone, you can sustain the debt. You need not worry about the debt. Okay, that is the meaning of the IRGD. You just now, first you copy the point, then you will go more elaborate about this point. First you copy the point, student. Here, first you copy this. Even though I'll give you, I may give you the content, just you write this so the points will stay in your mind. Growth leads to debt sustainability in the Indian context, but not vice versa. Is a point number 1. Second one, you write. Look at the second statement, student. The interest rate on debt paid by the Indian government. So this is a preliminary statement. Okay, it's not this can be given directly as a statement. Interest rate on debt paid by the Indian government has been less than India's growth rate by norm. Not by exception, not during this year, not during the last year, by norm, which means regularly we are having this experience. Which means always in India, growth is more than the interest rate what we are borrowing. Growth is higher than the interest rate what we are borrowing, which means IRGD is always negative for India, not during this year, not during last year. So they are given some historical evidence. What is the evidence? We have in the next slide. First you understand. The next slide we got the explanation for the IRGD. First you understand this point. In India, always we have the growth at a level higher than the interest rate. So we need not worry about the debt to GDP sustainability. Now look at the chart. So it's the evidence. Look at the year. From 1996, government has plotted the evidence. Not from 2017, not from 2014. From 1996, government says that. So here, look at the point. So here the orange color is the nominal growth rate, which means this one is the growth rate, growth. This one is the growth rate of India. Growth rate of India. This one is the interest rate of India, which means the growth is always higher. Only here, only few years we had the mismatch. Leaving those years, always India growth is higher than the interest rate, which means IRGD is always negative for India. What was the prior argument which was mentioned in the document? Document says that as long as you have IRGD negative territory, you can go ahead with the borrowing. Copied? First you copy this. First point is we should know about what is IRGD. Then what is the IRGD scenario for India? It is always negative. When it is always negative, then what is the inference? We need not worry about the borrowing scenario of the economy. Now comes the question, sir, why we are talking about the borrowing scenario? Because now we are in economic downturn. Now we are in recession. To help the economy to come out of recession, we have to spend more. To do more spending, we should have our own money. When we don't have our own money, we have to borrow. But when we plan to borrow, we have the constraint. What is the constraint? So here the people are criticizing the government, don't borrow, don't borrow. But here we are coming with the economic validation. Don't worry about the borrowing. When you have your own money, you spend on the economy. When you don't have your money, you borrow. But even when you borrow, the borrowing should get converted into the growth. When you are able to convert the borrowed money into growth, you need not worry about the borrowing. It is a very important point because the economic survey, document 1, it says that this explanation, what we are doing in the chapter 2, it is going to stay as an intellectual anchor to the government. Because many times people are confusing the government. So government is not able to borrow. When the government is not able to borrow, because when you have the economic expansion, government will be having more money. But when the economy in the recession, government will be having less money. So during the time when you expect the government to spend more in the economy, how the government will spend? The government can borrow. But when the government borrows, people criticize the government. But government need not worry about this. Here we are giving the economic intellectual evidence. What is the evidence? That is the thing what we are learning, what you looking here. Okay. Now next thing. Next I told you, IRGD. Okay, IRGD definition is given here. So students kindly copy the definition. What is IRGD? So here definition is given. The difference between the interest rate and the growth rate of an economy. Okay, difference between the interest rate and growth rate. Students, these are the things which can be converted into statements. For example, I can convert this into a question, but now I'm not going to waste the time by converting everything into questions because that's the thing what we are going to do in the mock test, everything. Now it's time to learn the concept. First you learn the concept, then converting into questions, you can do it any point of time. Now each and every minute is important, not going to waste the time by converting into question, but you have to do the job in a parallel manner. Sir, you are said like this. So how these things may be asked in the examination in the question format. So here I have not taken the factual trend, these things and all, you'll understand looking, but here, this is understanding. Okay, here I started this concept, but we got more things to travel. Okay, we got more things to be covered. Okay, now this is the starting point of the chapter 1. Now what is the other things mentioned? Now we know about the term called as IRGD. Second thing, as long as the IRGD is negative, the country need not worry about the debt sustainability, which means debt will be sustained. And then we have shown some evidence. Now comes the next one. Next question is, so this thing what we are discussing, is it the same for entire countries across the globe? For example, for India, you are saying that for India always the growth is higher than the interest rate. For India, the IRGD is negative. As long as the thing is negative, you need not worry about the borrowing. You are saying like that. Will it be applicable to all the countries in the world? Because you have the countries, mix of countries. Some countries are in the emerging stage. Some countries are in the advanced stage. So will it be applicable to all the countries? So here comes the intellectual answer. What is the answer given in the survey document? No, that's not the same. Only in the emerging market. So here they are giving the evidence. Sometimes in advanced economies, the things which are applicable, which are witnessed in advanced economy, you need not apply the same formula in the emerging economy because we are emerging. We have to apply different strategy. So here they are saying that the same IRGD, if it is negative for advanced economies, so we don't have the same correlation, which means the debt may be sustained, may not be sustained. But there also, when the IRGD is negative, there also debt will be sustained. But here we have more scope in the emerging markets. So why they say like that? Now comes the question, sir. Advanced economies, even the IRGD is okay, the debt will be sustained, but it is not much appreciated. But here actually this will work out in the emerging economy. Now comes the question, on what basis you are saying this? So I won't believe. What is the evidence you have? Now the survey comes with the evidence. What is the evidence? It is a much interesting one. So here they are saying that, now look at the point. Here the survey says that, for example, if we have an advanced economy. In advanced economies, here they have the IRGD, which is negative, but the negative, how they got the negative means, the negative value we can derive through two scenarios. What is the two scenario? For example, here one is the interest rate in advanced economy is 2%. 2% is the interest rate. Then what is the growth they have? Growth is 3%. 2% minus 3%, the value is -1, which means negative IRGD. So it's not a worrying scenario. For them also, debt will be sustained. But but here, this thing here, the economists, they say that they don't have much scope. Why they don't have much scope? Because the negative rate, what they got, is not due to the higher growth rate. Look at the point what I'm saying. Negative growth, what they have is not due to the higher growth rate. It is due to the lower interest rate. Look at the point. It is not due to the high growth rate. It is due to the low interest rate. For example, if the interest rate is around 4%, then they would have got into the positive IRGD. Are you able to get my point? So the IRGD stays in negative zone because interest rate is very lower. This interest rate is lower because it is set in such a way by the monetary authorities. Able to get the point? So the IRGD negative feature, what we observe in the advanced economies, is not due to the high growth rate. It is mainly due to the low interest rate. Okay, that is a scenario number one. Now we compare with the emerging markets. Emerging markets are underdeveloped economies or whatever may be. Here you have some interest rate because you know that underdeveloped economies, emerging markets, you will be having the high inflationary pressure. Because of that, you may have the high interest rates. So here you have 5% interest rate. But even though you have the 5% interest rate, here the IRGD is negative. Why? It is not because of the low interest rate. Interest rate is 5%. But even after having the 5% interest rate, growth is 7%. Growth is 9%. Growth is 8%. Which means high growth rate has made the IRGD to go into negative zone. Able to get the point, understand the difference? So what is the validity of this understanding? What is the validity is, here look at the point. They have got the interest rate at the percentage of 2%, which means if they want to expand the economy, if they want to press the demand accelerator, the maximum cushion, what they have is, they can reduce the interest rate only up to 0%. Because already is at low level. They don't have the luxury of applying the monetary expansion. But here, the interest rate is 5%. When you want to accelerate, you can further accelerate the growth by bringing it lower than the 5%. Because the interest rate growth differential negative is not due to the low interest rate. It is due to the high growth rate. This is the point mentioned in the economic survey, and they have compared the advanced economies with the developing economies. Is it clear? So this difference you should have. You put a tick here and then you put a tick here. Here the IRGD is negative due to the low interest rate. Here the IRGD is negative due to the high growth rate. High growth rate gives more space for the monetary as well as fiscal action. Here I am coming to the point, students. Here the IRGD is negative because of the high growth rate. This gives more space for monetary easing or for the fiscal expansion. So when you want to do the fiscal expansion, the thing which is stopping the government is whether the borrowing is good to the economy or bad to the economy. The survey helps the government by giving the counter argument. Borrowing is good to the government as long as the borrowing gets converted into the growth rate of the economy. Are you able to understand the flow chart? The flow chart is whenever there is recession, you need to pump in the money. When you plan to pump in the money, comes the question whether borrowing is good or bad. Now the borrowing is good or bad is substantiated by the statement, by the point called as IRGD. As long as the IRGD is negative, you can borrow because it won't affect the sustainability, debt sustainability of the economy. Evidence says it is differentiated between the advanced economies and between the emerging economies. Now comes the question. Okay, sir, I got convinced. As long as the IRGD is negative, I can borrow. Now comes the question, what is the right method of fiscal, what is the right approach of fiscal policy? For example, fiscal policy can be pro-cyclical or fiscal policy can be counter-cyclical. What is the meaning of the pro-cyclical, counter-cyclical? For example, when the economy is expanding, at that time when you apply the expansionary fiscal policy, that is called as pro-cyclical. Understand the point? Economy is expanding. At the time I am applying the expansionary policy, it will lead to further growth of the economy. That is called as pro-cyclical, going with the cycle. Same way, when the economy is contracting, at the time when you are applying the contractionary fiscal policy, which means expansion, expansion, contraction time, contraction, then that is called as a pro-cyclical. But counter-cyclical, what is the meaning of counter-cyclical? When the economy is expanding, at that time you won't support the economy. You will apply contractionary measure. But when the economy is contracting, at that time you will apply the expansionary measure. Don't get confused, students, because I'm using the same words. It may be of confusing nature. So look at the explanation what I am giving. Very simple. Pro-cyclical means going with the wind, which means when the economy is expanding, applying the expansionary policy. Economy is contracting, applying the contractionary policy. That's all same. Expansion, expansion, contraction, contraction. But what is counter-cyclical? During the expansionary time, you will apply the contractionary fiscal policy. During contractionary time, you will apply the expansionary fiscal policy. So here we got two scenarios. Now what is the scenario? One is expansionary scenario, one is contractionary scenario. Now we are in the contractionary scenario, recession scenario. So what is the right approach? The survey argues that counter-cyclical measures are more appropriate during recessionary times than pro-cyclical. So this argument makes the government to go ahead with the move of applying the expansionary fiscal policy. So now you just, let's get into the point. So this I have shown you, students, explained you. If you want to copy this, you can copy. Then I'll get into the pro-cyclical and then counter-cyclical concept. Okay, first finish copying this. Those who understood the concept need not copy, because as I told you, I'll deliver you the content. Okay, this is about the point which I explained. Now next we are going to learn about the cyclical and pro-cyclical. Okay. This one, you write the debts and then students, okay, I was telling you, no, whenever there is a growth, debt will be sustained. This is evidence. Kindly have a look. Have a look. This is the orange color is the change in the ratio of debt of the economy. This one is the change in the debt, debt to GDP. And this one is about the growth rate. So look at the point. When the growth is increasing, debt is coming down. Able to get the point? When the growth is coming down, debt is increasing. Able to get the point? So whenever there is growth in the economy, debt will automatically come down. So you borrow the money, because of borrowing, debt to GDP will increase. Even if it increases, growth will bring down the debt to GDP ratio. It's a very important thing which may be asked in the examination, or you can use in the main examination. When you're asked to write about the measures of the government, you can use this point. First, develop the strong understanding. I was explaining the pro-cyclical, then the two slides are left out in between. That's why just I'm giving you the time to copy this. Then I'll get back to the same point, pro-cyclical, counter-cyclical. Don't worry. So I was talking about this, suddenly he came to this, don't worry. I'll come back to the point. Students, these are very important evidences which you can use. You can use a reference in the main examination. And then here, From 96, same from 96 we are giving the evidence. We brought the evidence. It is not the assumption of a particular person. It is the evidence, economic evidence. Okay, students. So till now, what is the summary? Till now, because we got many more things to cover in chapter 2, minimum 30-40 minutes more we will take to finish the chapter 2. But till now, what are the things we have covered is, what is debt sustainability? Then when the government can have debt sustainability? When the IRGD is negative. So IRGD, what is the scenario for India? Always the IRGD is negative for India. From 96, we have shown the chart. Then what is the scenario for advanced economies, whereas our economy? What is the positive we have? In advanced economies, they don't have the luxury of applying the expansion because they are having IRGD not because of the high growth rate, because of low interest rate. But India, we are having IRGD not because of low interest rate, because of high growth rate. Our interest rate is already higher. So when we bring it down, we can experience further expansion. When you plan to expand, don't worry about the borrowing. Because as long as you are able to convert the borrowing into growth of the economy, debt to GDP will come down. Any evidence? Yes, this is the evidence. So this is the thing what we understood till now. Now we are going to get into the thing which I was explaining already. What is pro-cyclical? What is counter-cyclical? I already given explanation. So we are going to get into those points. What is the next thing is, write the heading, counter and pro-cyclical. Which measure is most accurate? Already I have explained you when to press the demand accelerator. That's a different perspective. When the supply side disruptions are on, it is not the right method to apply the demand accelerator. We have to adjust the supply side. That's a different perspective. But this is a different perspective. When we can have the monetary expansion, when we can have the fiscal expansion, along with the cycle or against the cycle. Because along with the cycle, it is easy. But against the cycle, sometimes it may work out, sometimes it may not work out. We may have the confusion. But here the survey points out that don't have any confusion. The survey clearly says that counter-cyclical measures are fiscal multipliers. You would have heard about the monetary multiplier or money multiplier. Here the survey says that fiscal multipliers are disproportionately higher during the times of recession. Look at the statement what I am saying. Fiscal multipliers, which means money what you are pumping into the economy will yield more results, will multiply many times more during recessions than during the expansion. So that is the point which is mentioned in this segment. Now kindly copy this. Then I will tell you example. I will give you example for what is counter cyclical, what is the example for the pro cyclical. In volume 2, we have many factual things. Okay, so but here we have got many conceptual things in volume 1. Volume 1, when you're done, you can go with full confidence for your main examination. Okay, that confidence I can give you. And for prelims, any statements you can apply easily the elimination strategy when you understood the concepts in a more clear manner. Okay, so here look at the point. Counter-cyclical fiscal policy to enable growth during downturns. It's the one recommendation given by the economic survey. Counter-cyclical, go against the downturn. Next one. Here they use the word fiscal multipliers are disproportionately higher or very strong. They are yielding more results during recession than during the expansion. Fiscal multipliers, simple logic. You apply the logic of money multiplier. Money multiplier, fiscal multiplier. That's why I told you. If you don't have any idea about money multiplier, here you may not have the understanding. So I'm not going to get into the basics. So assuming that you know about money multiplier, we are building on the concept. So this understanding is the basic understanding. Okay, now comes the next one. Here look at the chart. So here the diagram says that this is the pro-cyclical. So what is understanding, what you can infer or what you can interpret from this diagram? Pro-cyclical, it makes more, or it is more active. Pro-cyclical is more active during the economic upturn. but the counter-cyclical is more active during the economic downturn. Same thing. Just I'm explaining with the help of the diagram. So pro-cyclical is more active during the upturn, but the counter-cyclical is more active during the downturn. So this is the example. Now comes the next one. Here, students, you will get complete idea about pro-cyclical, counter-cyclical. Already I explained you. If there is any, if the understanding is incomplete, then we're looking at these points, we'll have the complete understanding. Look at the example. So this can be converted into the prelim-based statements. You would have seen many questions in the prelims questions already, okay, during your preparation times. Okay, we would have witnessed many questions in this dimension. What is that? Pro-cyclical means, look at the point. During recession time, they apply contractionary. I told you, no? Pro-cyclical means expansion, expansion. Contraction, contraction. Same logic we apply. Pro-cyclical, during recession, we apply the contractionary. Pro-cyclical, during expansion, we apply the expansion. Contraction, contraction, expansion, expansion. But here, the opposite scenario. Some examples are given here. What is the meaning of the contractionary policy? What is the meaning of the expansionary policy? Kindly copy this. Minimum 2 or 4 different type of questions can be framed from this slide. Prelims perspective, concept-based questions can be framed. What is meant by pro-cyclical? What is meant by the contractionary? Next slide, this measure is justified with an example. Okay. Next slide, we got the example for the example or evidence which supports the counter-cyclical measure. Okay, look at the example. Have you all copied? Okay, I hope you all have copied. Next one. Look at the example, students. Here, there is a recessionary time. You are implementing counter-cyclical measure. Through counter-cyclical measure, you are borrowing. Because already we have supported borrowing through the IRGD concept. You are borrowing 100 rupees. Economy is in a downturn. By borrowing 100 rupees, you are investing in the economy, which means you are doing expenditure. When you invest 100 rupees, you are getting a yield of 112 rupees. But here, you borrowed this 100 rupees at the rate of 8 rupees interest. But here, you are able to get 12 rupees growth. 12 is your growth, 8 is the interest rate. So, from the 12 rupees, you will pay the interest 8 rupees. Then you will be having 4 rupees left out in your hand. This 4 rupees is the money what you accumulated. This you can reinvest in the economy. This money will be having the multiplier effect in the economy. So, this is the example which substantiates that as long as the money what you are borrowing. But here imagine that, sir, I borrowed 100 rupees. This 100 rupees, I am not able to get 112. I got only 99 returns. Then that's a damaging effect. Able to get the point? So when the 100 rupees out of the money what you are borrowing, when you are able to make 112 rupees returns, then the money which you borrowed will not have any negative effect on the economy. As long as you have IRGD in the negative zone. So this is an example for the IRGD in a more practical way. Okay, so 100 got multiplied to 112. From 112, you have repaid 8 rupees. Then you are left with the 4 rupees balance. So this money once again gets reinvested. So economy grows. So what is the profit to the economy? 4 rupees. But what you have done? You have borrowed the money. So you need not worry about the borrowing. So now comes the next one. Now next point is negative IRGD advantage for India versus counter-cyclical policy. So the counter-cyclical policy, what we are supporting or what we are expecting from the government is supported by the negative IRGD of India. Our IRGD is negative, so we can go for expansion or we can go for the counter-cyclical. Now we are in recession, now we are in downturn. We can go ahead with the expansionary policy, or it can be called in other terms, counter-cyclical policy. Okay, so now the survey has given intellectual anchoring, or the survey has given some support to the move of government. That's given in the next slide. So the survey says that. Now sometimes when you analyze the point, sometimes you may have the view, sir, you are saying like this. I feel that, I personally feel that. It will make the government more fiscally irresponsible. Look at the word, sir, this will make the government to go fiscally irresponsible. The survey also mentions that point. No, this will not make the government fiscally irresponsible, or this is not the argument to make the government irresponsible. So this is the argument which try to relax the pressure on the minds of government, because you are pressurizing the government by saying that don't borrow. Then how the government will revive the economy without the borrowing when there is a negative revenues for the country? So it's not about making the government fiscally irresponsible. It is about placing an intellectual anchor to the government, which will support the move of the government. That's how the argument goes in the economic survey. So it becomes the next slide. This point becomes the next slide. Look at the point. So the doubt which we may have on our mind is mentioned here. We may have the doubt, sir, this may make the government to go fiscally irresponsible. We may think like that. No, it is not to make the government fiscally responsible. Make the government, convince the government, don't worry, invest, convert the investment into growth. That's all. Because we got a supporting point, IRGD negative. Okay, students, now you got some idea, fair idea about what is IRGD, what is debt to GDP ratio, what is pro-cyclical, what is counter-cyclical, all the things you got the understanding. Now, here the segment doesn't end. Now the chapter 2, the survey volume 1, chapter 2, they actually placing one more argument in this chapter 2. What is that argument? It is a very interesting argument. Now, before coming out with the answer, I want you to brainstorm your mind. Okay, now let me ask the question. Already I have thrown the question. Okay, we're doing the start. You've seen the question. Crowding out. Now, just you think for a while. If the government borrows or government is actively involved in the borrowing from the economy, what is the normal idea we have in our mind? If I ask you the question, if the government borrows, if the government increases the public expenditure, then it will lead to crowding out or crowding in. What is your answer? My question is, the government is increasing its public expenditure. What it will lead to? It's a normal understanding, no? So what you would have learned in the public finance during a preparation time. When the government increases expenditure, or let me write here. Okay, for example, we have got 100 rupees in the economy. That is the total volume of money what we have in our economy. Now the government actually borrows from the economy when the government is because government is borrowing. So out of the borrowed money, government has increased the public expenditure. So when the 100 rupees which is available in the economy, when it is completely borrowed by the government, then only less money is available to the private players, which means they will lose their opportunity for investment because the money what we have in the economy is utilized by the government. That's a normal logic now. So this will lead to the impact called as a crowding out. So this is a normal understanding or the normal interpretation what we have with respect to the government borrowing or with respect to the public expenditure. But here, the survey argues, economic survey argues that. So they are placing counter argument. No, not all the time public expenditure will lead to crowding out. Many times public expenditure, higher public expenditure or higher public borrowing will also lead to crowding in the economy. Look at the point. So here we are coming with a counter argument. So the same thing is asked in the main examination or preliminary examination. You'll be having some intellectual awareness about this point. So what is the justification? How they are justifying this point? They are saying that, this chapter 2, they are arguing that. For example, we have certain areas where we have the unutilized resources. The resources may be unutilized. So here, when you keep investing in those areas where you have the unutilized resources, these idle resources may be converted into ideal resources which may act as avenues of growth for the future. So the investment in these areas will lead to crowding in, will not lead to crowding out. They give many examples. One more example. Sometimes, now look at the second logic. When the government is doing more expenditure, sometimes this may lead to more income among the people. The more income will create demand opportunities in the economy. Demand will make the people or incentivize the private people. So demand is increasing. If I start increasing my productive capability, I may make use of the higher demand in the economy. Able to get the point? When the government is investing more, when it accelerates the demand capabilities of the people, for example, higher job or higher income, higher savings of the people, when those things are increased, this thing will induce the private people to make their investments or to increase their productive capabilities to make use of the aggregate increase in the demand of economy. You would understand the second point. And then the chapter also places the argument in one more format. What is that? The chapter says that when you have 100 rupees in the economy, then when the government borrows 90, then only less money is left out to the people, 10 rupees. Okay, we accept that. But this 100 rupees is not always same in the economy, because we don't have any constant money supply in the economy. It keep on changing. When the government increases expenditure, it will lead to more income. For example, the previous example, 100 rupees you have, then it will lead to 112 rupees growth. Then after repaying 8 rupees, you are able to accumulate. Okay, this is the excess money what you generated. So in this way, okay, it keep on increasing. This money may be available to the private players. But to develop this money, government has done the investment. To do the investment, initially it would have made some crowding out, but eventually it will lead to the crowding in the economy. Like this, the chapter 2 comes with the argument, says that always the public expenditure, always it will not lead to crowding out. There are many chances where the public expenditure will lead to crowding in also. So now students, you got the understanding what the chapter 2 is all about. It's all about supporting the government to go ahead with the expansionary policy, because government has got confusion in the mind. So here the chief economic advisor through the economics survey volume 1, it supports the government to go ahead with the expansion, support the economy, come out with the more growth. Don't worry about the debt to GDP. We have got the evidence. What is the evidence? IRGD is negative and crowding in will also take place in economy. Don't worry, because many people, private players, industrial players, they are criticizing the government. When you borrow the entire money, then what we will do for investments? Don't worry about these arguments. This is the entire crux of chapter 2. Now we got idea now students, so kindly copy the point. Crowding out. Point number 1, areas which will incentivize the private people to invest more. In those areas, when you increase the public expenditure, it won't lead to crowding out. It will eventually lead to crowding in. That is the meaning of the point number 1. Then in the areas where the fiscal multipliers are large, fiscal multipliers, the previous example, 100 became 112, it got multiplied, where the multipliers are large. There, when you go ahead with the public expenditure, it won't lead to the crowding out. It will lead to crowding in. Students, through the chapters, we are trying to develop the intellectual understanding, okay, the awareness about the multiple concepts. Okay, so now the first chapter gave you some idea about the measures which is apt during recession. Second chapter is giving idea about the debt to GDP ratio, about the IRGD, about the crowding out, about the pro-cyclical, counter-cyclical. These are the things which will act as the foundation for writing the answers in the mains and for picking up the right answers in the preliminary examination. Okay, that we are doing now. Okay, now have you all copied? So just take hints alone, students. So don't waste much of your time, because all the things I'll deliver to you. Then this point, supply of savings is not constant. When the fiscal multipliers are large, savings will get multiplied in the economy. Because of the courtesy goes to the fiscal multipliers. Then look at the evidence. Last 3 decades, we observe strong negative correlation between debt to GDP and nominal interest rate. It's a very, very important point, students. First you write, then I'll explain the point. Very important point is this point. I'll explain. Okay, by writing you may understand, you may not understand. I'll explain the point. This one, you copy, I'll explain. Okay, so have you all copied? Now let me explain this point, second point. Now, for example, if we have 100 rupees in the economy, 100 rupees, okay, This money is actually borrowed by the government through the government securities or whatever method. When the government has completed the borrowing procedures, then only less money is available in the economy. Look at the point, less money is available. When more people means the private people, when they are demanding for the economy. So here I am talking about the normal logic, normal interpretation, what we have about the crowding out. 100 rupees, 90 is absorbed by the government. We have less money in the economy. More people are demanding for the less money. So more demand for the less money. So what will be the resultant impact in the economy? More demand for less money will lead to high interest rate. Able to get the point? So what are you able to understand where we are leading to, going to, the statement is leading to? So when the government borrows more money for public expenditure or higher public expenditure, this will lead to higher interest rate in the economy. Imagine as a corporate or as a businessman, I always prefer to borrow at the low interest rate. But when the government is doing this scenario, this will lead to high interest rate, so which will act as a constraint for the private people. That is a normal understanding what we have in our mind. It's an economic evidence. But here, look at this point. They say that no, it is a negative correlation, which means negative correlation. Higher the borrowing, lower the interest rate. So what is the normal logic? Higher the borrowing, higher is the interest rate. Because government is borrowing less money means more demand. So interest rate should rise in the economy. But evidence says that higher borrowing has many times in the past led to the low interest rate in the economy. So why you should worry about the crowding out? You able to understand? Normal logic, understand students, normal logic is when you borrow much, it will lead to high interest rate. But here they say, no, that's the understanding, that's assumption. But reality, India have a scenario, economic evidence. What is the evidence? Many times when the government involved in the active borrowing, so it has led to the lower interest rate. So this is also a positive point. You can go ahead with the borrowing. When you borrow more, it is not increasing the interest rate of economy. It has led to decrease in the interest rate. So it is a beneficial factor. So you go ahead with the borrowing, do the expansion for the economy. So now this is not mentioned in the statement. This is mentioned with the evidence. What is the evidence? Look at the chart. So here we have the chart evidence. What is evidence from 1991 period? When here the orange color is the nominal interest rate. Nominal interest rate. This one is the debt to GDP. So here, whenever the debt increase, here look at the point, debt increase, we have witnessed the lower interest rate in the economy. Able to get the point? Whenever the debt increase, the lower interest rate for the economy. You need not worry about the whether the interest rate will rise for the economy, whether my people will be affected. Don't worry. Whenever the borrowing increase, correspondingly interest rate. This is the scenario. This is evidence for India. So this is mentioned in the document in the chapter 2. That's all, students. Just try to assemble the points in your mind. So with this we are finishing. We are giving the end note for the chapter 2. Sorry. So a few more things are pending in chapter 2. Regarding the public debt and regarding external debt. Okay, these things, okay. What is whether external debt is more for India, internal debt is more for India, or central government debt is more for India, state government debt is more for India. These things we have to cover. Then we'll be finishing the chapter 2. Clear, students? Now we got some conceptual understanding about debt to GDP, about IRGD, and then about the pro-cyclical, counter-cyclical measures, then about the crowding out. All these are interconnected, interrelated things. In any way, the questions are asked in the main examination. Now you got plenty of points in your kit. Okay, you can apply them. Then you can frame the answers according to the demand of the questions. Now comes the next one. Structure of India's debt. It's a factual thing, students. Not that much concept oriented. You can just copy. Again. You can look at the point. What is the structure of India's debt? India's public debt to GDP has been significantly low compared to the high global debt levels. It's a prelims statement. Look at the point. India's level. Normally we think that our country is a debt-ridden country. We may have debt higher than the other country. We may think like that. But what is the reality? No, that's not the case. When we got the evidence. Next slide, I have given you evidence. So when compared to the high global debt levels. Next one. Moreover, the public debt and overall debt level for India has declined. So this is a question, prelims-based statement. So this can be converted. Is increasing for India. Maybe given statement may be given in this way. And then from 2003 onwards, it has been stable. So this is the way how the questions are asked in the preliminary examination. So you would have seen many sample questions. So these two are the pure prelim-based statements, not the mains-based things, prelim-based statements. So debt is declining for India, and from 2003 onwards, it got stabilized in our economy. It is stable. Okay. Now, what is the debt? What is the global comparison? Next slide, we are going to understand where we stand when we are compared with the global peers. Okay, students, have you copied? Now, look at this example. So here we have made the comparative analysis of India's debt with the other countries. Where we stand, India, the color red, okay, here we have, okay, our debt levels are given. So look at the debt levels of total debt as percentage of GDP is 444.7% for Japan. Look at the level, 444.7 percentage. It is the percentage of GDP, okay, that debt Japan has got. But look at the level of India, 122.9. Able to understand, okay, how we are supporting the measures of the government. So here, and this is first row, first column, second column. Government debt, total debt includes both the government debt as well as the private debt. So the first thing is about the total debt of the country. Second slide, government debt as percentage of GDP. When you take the debt of Japan, government debt is around 237.1 percentage and private debt is 207. But look at India. India, the government debt is 56.7 and then private level is 54.8. So we say that our levels are globally when compared to the requirements of the countries. So we are standing at the better level. We need not worry about the debt scenario of our economy. So we got more supporting evidences or economic evidences to help support the government. Okay, now it's time to revive the economy. So don't worry about the other constraints, the intellectual or the economic constraints, arguments, those things. Okay, this is the essence what we can interpret from this slide. Now comes the next one. What is the total external debt of India? External debt of India, which means the total external debt of India is only 2.7% of GDP, which means debt is made up of government debt as well as a private debt. And government debt is made up of internal debt as well as external debt. So you know about all those logic, internal debt, external debt, and about liabilities. Total liabilities means everything you know already. You may have the prior understanding. So here 2.7% of GDP. This is the debt level, which means this level is easily sustainable with the amount of forex reserves what we have. Okay, that is the argument of the survey, and survey says that the reserves what we have in our country is not only adequate to meet the government debt, is also adequate to meet the non-sovereign debt also. Sovereign as well as non-sovereign. We got the capability. So why to worry about the debt repayment capability of India? Okay, that is the argument of the economic survey. Okay. Then central government debt, and then when compared with the state government debt. So 70% of debt is central government and 30% is the debt of state government. You know that about the Finance Commission recommendation and all. The debt should be, debt to GDP ratio should be 60% overall and 40% for the central, 20% for the state government. These things and all I'm not bringing here. So you club with the understanding what you have already. So 70% and 30%. And then here the overall external liability of is only 6%. External liability is only 6% when compared with the internal liability. Internal liability is more for India. So this understanding you should have. Internal liability is more or external liability is more means external liability is very less for India. It stands at only 5.9%. So the round figure is 6%. Okay, students. Now you got the idea about the chapter 2. Now let me do the revision of the chapter 2. Chapter 2, what the chapter 2 talks about. What are the understandings we got from the chapter 2 of volume 1? Volume 1 talked about the pandemic and then the measures taken by the government. Volume 2, we talked about the measures needed from the government. So what were the measures? Expansionary measures. So to expand the economy, government has to borrow. But when the government plans to borrow, government has got the economic constraint. What is the constraint? We should focus on debt to GDP sustainability. The economic survey, chapter 2, it gives support to the government saying that as long as the IRGD is negative for the economy, you need not worry about the borrowing, because borrowing, when it gets converted into growth, or when the growth rate is higher than the interest rate of the economy, you can go ahead with the borrowing. And then when you plan to invest, when you plan to increase the expenditure, what is the right strategy? Strategy, whether it's counter-cyclical or pro-cyclical. Chapter 2 argues for the counter-cyclical measures. What are the counter-cyclical measures? Counter-cyclical measures means expansionary measures during the contraction. Contractionary measures during expansion. Because always we have a logic now, because counter-cyclical can also be understood in one more format. What is the format? For example, let me give a common example. So to help you to understand the point in your mind. So what is the common example is, so in our society we have got a behavior. What is the behavior is? When we attend the functions or any events of a particular, any events in a society, normally what is the normal practice we have is, when we go and attend the functions of rich people, so what we do means we gift them with the rich gifts. When we go and attend the marriages of the poor people, what we do is we give them with the less money, because you may understand, because because it depends upon, because they would have done more money, or else they have got the ability, they may repay back these things. But what is the normal logic? You should do more for the poor, you should do less for the rich, because they don't need your money, they got the more capability. But when we go for any marriages or functions, we used to spend more money for the rich people, but that's not the case. But this can be connected to the pro-cyclical, counter-cyclical, which means when the economy is in expansion, economy doesn't need the help of the government. At that time when you're supporting the government, it's of no use. But when the economy is contracting, the economy needs the help of the government. You jump in, you support the economy. For that, the entire chapter 2 talks about the supporting measure and about the intellectual anchoring given to the government, and about the position of India's debt, what is the level when compared to the global countries. These are the things what we have witnessed in chapter 2. Now with this understanding, let's step into the chapter 3 of economic survey of volume 1. Okay, now chapter 3. What is the chapter 3? Write the heading, students. Chapter 3 is it's a small chapter. Easily we can finish. Chapter 3. Does India's sovereign credit rating reflect its fundamentals? Here we should understand, how does our fundamentals look like, or whether they are strong or weak, economic fundamentals. And then what is meant by sovereign rating, whether will it have any impact on the overall performance of the country, what was the prior experience in the past, how the rating has affected India, how the ratings are given, is it more objective or more subjective, is it more transparent or opaque. So these things and all we should have some understanding, that we are going to develop with the help of the chapter 3 of economic survey. Okay, so here this chapter is included in the survey because Government of India or the Ministry of Finance, they wants to make a strong statement to the rating agencies that the rating what you are giving to India is not based on the fundamentals what we have in the economy, which means India is a positive outlier in many aspects, but you are underrating India. That is the crux of chapter 3. Before getting into the chapter, you have the understanding, because recently you would have come across S&P and then Moody downgrading India. So because of that, when India gets downgraded, it affects the financial prospects of our economy. Because sometimes many investment, because when we have any investments coming from other countries, for example, the foreign direct investments or foreign portfolio investments. So when the investments are done by the investment companies, so the choice what they have is they invest only on the countries with the high rating. So these inflows are affected because of the rating, which may affect the financial prospects of the country, at least in the short term. So this should not continue. They should look at the country's fundamentals also. That is the argument, direct or indirect answer given by the finance ministry to the rating agencies. So what is how the argument is placed by the economic advisor? We are going to have a look at the arguments. Okay. Now, Now, why the thing is actually, why the thing has irritated, or why the thing has, what is the main thing which has irritated the government of India means because India is a country having no default, no credit default. Look at the point. India is not having any historical sovereign credit default. And moreover, this is not the scenario during last 2 years or not during the last 3 years. During the last 2 decades, India has never undergone or India has never failed in its repayment or never gone into the default territory because our repayment is in such a level. So at this level, why you are downgrading our country? If you are downgrading based on other parameters, what are the other parameters? GDP parameters or the political stability of the country or about the corruption scenario or rule of law or about the current account balance. So on inflation scenario, all these things, even when you consider, so India's fundamentals are very strong. Then why you are downgrading India? Okay, that is the main argument placed in the chapter 3. So why the argument is actually placed by the government is because a country which is in the 5th place or in the 3rd place in the PPP based on the PPP. So we are in the 3rd position in the global GDP ranking. For a country of this much size or a country of this much quality, when they are downgraded, this is a very rare occurrence in history. Look at the point what I am saying. It is a very rare occurrence in history. Now comes the question. Do we have any other prior historical evidences, historical occurrences of underrating or downgrading any other country other than India? Yes. So here the survey document says that when China got into or China stepped into top 5 economies, when the event happened, at that time China got downgraded. The same angle when India got into the top 5 economies in the world, now we are getting downgraded. It shows the bias or shows the subjective nature of the credit rating agencies. Moreover, they are not transparent. So government actually criticizes the ratings of the rating companies. So now with this understanding, we are going to have a look at the arguments of the economic survey. Now the first one. 5th largest economy in the lowest rung of the investment grade. Okay, we are starting this chapter by making this statement. 5th largest economy when it is downgraded, or 3rd largest economy based on the PPP levels. So it is a shocking point. When we are getting the same level, China got downgraded when it stepped into the top 5 economies. Okay. Next slide. We are going to understand about the historical experience of the downgrade. Have a look at this slide, students. When China entered into the top 5 economies, the China got downgraded. When India and China entered into the top 5. Same angle, when India entered into top 5, we have witnessed the downgrade. So like this, the survey criticizes that. So it shows some level of bias in rating. So that is the point mentioned in the document. Entry of China in top 5 economies and entry of India in top 5 economies. So we are starting this chapter in this way. Okay, now we got some idea. China, same thing happened when they stepped into top 5. And India got into top 5. Okay, now what is the other argument? Okay. Now, what is the criteria based on which rating is given by the sovereign agencies? Normally, the sovereign rating agencies, they look at the economic fundamentals of the country, like the thing what I mentioned earlier, about the GDP, about the inflation, consistency of economy, so at the optimal level, then current account balance, then about the reserves, then about the political stability, rule of law, ease of doing business, all the things are considered. And apart from that, the most important thing is ability of the government. Look at the point, ability of the government to repay its debt. Because rating is important only when you borrow the money. So here the ratings are very vital and they considered or ranked according to the ability of the government and also based on the willingness of the government, how much government is willing to repay. When the government is not willing, even though having the ability, then the country may be downgraded. But here the survey argues that India is showing the complete willingness in repayment and India is not having any past credit default history. Then what is the basis? What is the rationale for downgrading India? Because the rating is based on the ability as well as the willingness. Ability also we are capable. In willingness also we are not having any credit default in the past. So that is the argument. Okay, argument goes in this way. So now sovereign credit rating seeks to quantify issuers' ability and willingness to meet the debt obligations. So and then we know that when the ratings are favorable, this may assist the inflow of foreign currencies into economy. So this may help the economy in the short term or in the long term. So this is the normal definition of sovereign credit rating and what they consider. They consider the ability as well as the willingness. Now comes the next one. India has got a track record. What is the track record? Zero sovereign default history. Okay, so this understanding you should have is a preliminary based statements. Very often India has encountered or met with the sovereign credit default. Means it's a wrong statement. India has got zero sovereign default history. And then India's ability to pay for the entire stock of India's sovereign. Already we have seen the point. So this is a very important point both for the government as well as for the non-government. Sovereign as well as the non-sovereign. We have the reserves. Adequate reserves to make for the payments. So very important point. So without considering the ability, then why you are downgrading? When I borrow the money, what you should consider whether I am capable or not. Our fundamentals are strong. I got the ability to repay. Never I had defaulted. Then why you are downgrading? So the question has got some logic. So when I am underperforming, you can downgrade. But I am performing. There is no evidence. Why you are downgrading? So he got biased towards the emerging economies or when they are getting into the zone. So you are showing some bias. So this impact, this impact this will have based on this investment companies, the foreign portfolio investments. So it may be halted. So because of that, even though we don't have the problem, the rating what you are giving, it may lead to problem. Able to get the point? Now the country don't have any problem, but you are downgrading. So assuming that India is in the speculative grade or India is in the lower rank, money won't come to India. So we may have the future problem. At that time we may say that, yes, the point what I told has come true. Able to get my point? I downgraded India. Now see, India is underperforming. It's not due to the India's bad performance. You are given low ranking. Low ranking may affect the financial prospects of the future. So the ranking must be very careful. Ranking must be more subjective. So in this angle, the argument goes. It should be more transparent. So in this angle, it should not be more subjective. It should be more objective. In this angle, the argument goes. Now look at this point. India is a clear outlier. So need not write. The survey says that India has got many positive fundamentals which should help India to go up the ranking, but we got downgrade. Why? There is no reason to downgrade, but it is making ripples. It is making spillover effects on my economy. So I should be ranked according to my own fundamentals. So if you do, so then we have the counter arguments. In this angle, the chapter proceeds with the arguments. So you can write the points. What are the points which are considered for the sovereign rating? So some examples are given. These are not the only points. These are some of the points which are considered for ranking a country. Okay, students. Now next one. Past episodes. Okay, here look at the next scenario. Next scenario, the survey makes the argument or gives the explanation saying that in the past, whenever India got downgraded or India got upgraded, both positive and negative. So the survey says that India was not having any major impact in our economy. Look at the argument. In the past, whenever India got downgraded, we did not have any much major impact. Whenever India got upgraded also, we did not have any major impact. So now, we got downgraded means it is not going to have any impact on my economy. Able to understand how they are correlating the things. So we are not going to have any impact. So here, they have used the word called as threshold downgrade or threshold upgrade. You should understand what is the meaning of the word threshold upgrade, threshold downgrade. For example, normally we have upgrade, we have downgrade, but within the upgrade, downgrade, we have a scenario known as threshold upgrade, threshold downgrade. What is the meaning of the word threshold? Here, when you are within the investment level, for example, investment level from A to C, you have got ranking means from A to the certain level, it is called investment grade. Within the investment grade, you are going up or moving up the ladder. But next one is called a speculative grade. This country investments are more speculative. When you invest on these countries, your investments are more speculative, which means from investment grade moving on to the speculative grade. In speculative grade, you got many levels. So when you are moving within the same grade, investment grade, when you are moving up the ladder or down the ladder, which means it is not a threshold. But from investment, when you are stepping down to speculative, or from speculative, when you are stepping into investment level, that is called as a crossing the threshold level. So here the surveys mentions that. What were the impact in the past when India got the threshold upgrade or when India got threshold downgrade? What was the prior experience? We are going to have a look at that. Yes, now look, before going into the experience, you can look at these points. What is the point? Even though we don't have any problem in our country, the downgrade what you do on our country may affect the financial prospects in the future. Okay, that is mentioned here. Then the survey argues for more transparent, more objective, so which means less subjective, more objective method of rating for the country. So it wants the kind of method. So all the countries, they should press for or demand for this kind of rating from the rating companies, or else the rating should be ignored. Okay, that is the call of the economic survey. When you want to know more about, sir, what are the different types of rankings given by the country? Double A means what is the meaning of double A? Double B means what is the meaning of double B? All these things are given in the supporting document given to you. That list of how the S&P gives a ranking, how the Moody gives a ranking, but that's not important not essential for the examination. Only in the financial world of investment, those things are essential. If you want to have any awareness, you can have a look at the document. But here I'm not mentioning those things because they are not essential. Students, kindly have a look at this slide. This slide will tell you the impact on our economy during the threshold upgrade or threshold downgrade. From investment level, when we got downgraded to speculative level, or from speculative level, India got upgraded to the investment level, what was the impact on our economy? What is the past experience? Here, look at the point, average of downgrades, which means look at this level, which means downgrade, no, all the bars are equal. You able to understand the picture? Here, look at the scenario, average of upgrades. When India got upgraded, so here what is the meaning? This is the year of change. Red is the year of change. And then the blue is the year before the change. And green is the year after the change. Look at the scenario. This red is the year of downgrade or upgrade. Blue is the year before the upgrade or downgrade. Green is the year after the downgrade, which means in all the scenario, if this is the scenario, performance of the country, there is no impact before or after. There is a mild impact, weak impact or no impact, because the bars are even. You would understand here, see, the bars are even, the bars are even. So here, look here, 37, 37, 37, same number. Before the downgrade or before, and that also, here look at the point, average of threshold. Even the threshold upgrade happened, there is no impact. So need not worry about the ratings on the country. Look at the fundamentals of the country, how the country is performing. The rating, it doesn't have any impact on the performance of the economy. So like that, the argument is placed by the economic survey in chapter 3. That's all. So these are the things what you should remember with respect to chapter 3. So what the chapter 3 is all about? Chapter 3 is about the sovereign rating. Recently, India got downgraded. So, and then the survey places the argument that India is a clear outlier in many parameters. But even after that, India got downgraded. We don't have any justification for the downgrade. And then the survey argues that the methodology should be more transparent. It should be less subjective, and it should be based on the parameters or based on the fundamentals. And then says that during the past downgrade or upgrade, we were not having any impact on our economy. So these are the things mentioned in chapter 3. So now we are done with the chapter 1. Chapter 1 talked about the measures taken during the pandemic and what is the right time to press the demand accelerator is the core essence of chapter 1. Chapter 2 talked about the revival measures or expansionary measures needed in the economy during the downturns. So there we have seen about negative IRGD, there we have seen about cyclical, pro-cyclical, counter-cyclical, then about the crowding out impact. So when the crowding out will happen, and because of crowding out, whether the interest rate, nominal interest rate, will it come down or will it increase? What were the historical evidences? All these things we covered. Then we learned about the India's debt scenario of India. Then we got into the third chapter. Third chapter we learned about the sovereign credit rating of our economy. So sovereign credit rating, whether it is reflecting the fundamentals or not. Even during the downgrade or upgrade, what will happen to our economy? So what were the prior experiences? So the prior experiences says that the ratings upgrade or downgrade don't have any major impact on the economy. So these are the things what we have learned in the chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. Now we are going to step into chapter 4. Chapter 4, kindly copy the title, students. Chapter 4. Inequality and growth, whether we have the conflict or we have the convergence. Inequality and growth, we have the conflict or we have the convergence. It is going to be our plot in the 4th chapter. So we should understand the argument or the premise based on which chapter 4 is built in the economic survey. Chapter 4 places the question or makes the argument, and it questions that what is the correlation between the socio-economic outcomes and growth of a country. When the country is growing, what impact we are having on the socio-economic outcomes. Then country is growing means during the growth time, what is the impact on the socio-economic outcomes. Then when the inequality, when the country is growing, what is the impact on the socio-economic outcomes. Same angle, when we have the inequality, when the inequality is increasing in a country, then what is the impact on the socio-economic outcomes. Here, what do we mean by the socio-economic outcomes? Here, the socio-economic outcomes means we talk about the improvement in the health facilities or improvement in the education access or sanitation or water or about the IMR, MMR, multiple things. So all these things, what type of impact they are having as a result of these changes. So here, normally, before getting into the chapter argument, how the economic survey argues, let's understand or let's check what is our normal understanding we have about this scenario. Normally, when the growth is increasing for a country, what impact the growth will have on the socio-economic outcomes. We all know that when the growth increases, automatically increase in the growth will have positive impact on the socio-economic outcomes, which means when the growth increases, people will be having better access to all the facilities. That is a normal understanding. Same angle, when we have inequality, higher the inequality, lower is the outcome, which means we won't be having any health, high quality health services or access to education. All the things will be affected when you have more inequality. So what is the requirement? You should have high growth, you should have the low inequality. So by having the growth along with the inequality will not lead to higher performance in the socio-economic outcomes. That is a normal understanding. That's a scenario what we have witnessed in the advanced economies of the world. But here, the chapter 4 of economic survey, it places its argument saying that in India, growth as how we thought or how we understood, growth is having the positive connection. For example, when the growth increases, the access to all the facilities, so the high quality facilities are reaching the people. But unlike the thought process, unlike the understanding what we have with regard to inequality, for example, higher the inequality, we understood that lower will be the facility. But in India, based on the historical performance, based on the reality, when we had a check on the reality, it's understood that inequality is not having that much impact on the access to the facilities in India, which means even amidst inequality, India is able to deliver higher or positive socio-economic outcomes. But that's not the case with the advanced economies. For example, in all the advanced economies, when the growth got increased, we had the positive improvement in the socio-economic outcomes. But inequality, when it got increased, the outcomes got decreased. The line went this way. But for India, even amidst the higher inequality, the socio-economic outcomes, it performed better for India. So what is the argument? How the argument is placed in the chapter 4 is? Chapter 4 says that the country can focus either on the growth or addressing the inequality. So two things are like the two eyes to the economy. So you should address inequality, you should focus on the growth. But here the survey says that without having the growth in the economy, you cannot aim for redistribution, because you can address the inequality only by distributing the resources, distributing the income among the people, evenly among the people. Only when I have money in my hand, I will distribute. When I don't have money, then how I will distribute? So I can ensure the redistribution or equity only when I have the growth in the economy. So without having the growth, I cannot establish address the inequality. So when the growth wants to be evenly distributed, first I should have the growth in the economy. So in all the other countries, they should keep, when they are achieving the growth, they should have an eye on the addressing inequality also. But in India, along with the growth, even though we have the inequality, it is not having that much impact on the socio-economic outcomes. So what should be the prior focus of the government? Where the focus must be levied by the government? It's better for the government to focus on the growth, because growth has got more potential to address the poverty than inequality. Inequality is nothing but relative poverty. So inequality is nothing but it is a type of relative poverty. When compared to this person, I am poorer. When compared to this person, I am richer. So to address these things, you should have the growth in the economy. When you got the growth, when the overall pie got improved, then you can focus on the redistribution. So this is the explanation, this is the crux of the chapter 4. This we are going to see in a detailed manner, okay, with the explanations, with the points mentioned in the chapter 4. So this is the introduction for the chapter 4. Now students, you know about the basics of definition for the word inequality, poverty, everything you know. So here, inequality refers to the degree of dispersion in the distribution of assets. Then poverty means it is about the people, those who are in the bottom rung, okay, whether they have the access to the basic facilities or not. It is the poverty. We all know about the definition of this and definition of this. We all know. Next one is relative measure of poverty is nothing but it is inequality. So inequality is nothing but when you measure the poverty in relative terms, we end up in the inequality. Then what is the experience for India? What is the experience for India is, look at the point, unlike advanced economies. In advanced economies, economic growth and inequality converge, which means you should have the improvement in growth along with the improvement in inequality. Then only you can have positive outcomes on the socio-economic parameters. But in India, here the things diverge for India. So which means when you have the high growth, you are able to have the positive outcome. So even though you have the high inequality, in that scenario also you are able to deliver the higher socio-economic outcomes in India. But that's not the case with the advanced economies. This point you kindly copy, students. This is a more completely different point, different scenario, which is mentioned in the economic survey. So this is the entire plot of chapter 4. Chapter 3 and 4 are simple. Then we got more things in 5 and 6 and 7. We got more technical things. As it is a live class, we are proceeding without any break. Okay. So this you should remember, the converging of impact and here the diverging of impact in our country. It's quite shocking to understand that they are diverging. diverging in India. So they are given evidences in the chapter 4. We'll have a look at the evidences in the coming slide. Now, socio-economic outcomes like health and life expectancy and all the other things. So these are the things which are given as example in the survey. These are the things which are cited as examples and what impact they have during the high growth rate of economy and when during the high inequality of economy. What impact they have. This need not write, students. Okay, just giving you some idea. Socio-economic outcomes means what we are talking about. What are the things we are talking about? Giving you some idea about those things. Then look at this slide. Here the health index, it got improved with the inequality also. Which means look at the point, higher the inequality, we got the improvement in the health index. And here also the per capita, which means growth we all know. This side how the things should come, it should come in this way. This way. For example, look at the advanced economies. Advanced economies, the things are coming in this way for the advanced economies. But for India, see, it's going in this way. Growth, we all know the logic. Growth is same. Growth for the advanced economies for India, it's going in the same way. When there is improvement in growth, the outcomes are improving. But look at for the advanced economies. When there is a high inequality, they are having the drop in the socio-economic outcomes. But India is not witnessing the drop in the socio-economic outcomes, even amidst high inequality. The country is able to deliver better socio-economic outcomes to the people of a country. The poor people, vulnerable people, they are able to have access to the facilities even when they are having low income. So this is the point which is mentioned in the survey. See, this is the change. This is the change between the advanced economies and between India. For growth, we both are similar. But here we diverge. Next one is different in next one. Same thing I explained in the education index, other thing. Education, what is the scenario? For India, we got positive correlation. And then for advanced economies, two things are negatively correlated. So now, next one. Economic growth has a far greater impact on poverty alleviation than inequality. Here comes the final argument. What is the final argument? So, when a country tries to develop the economy, country focus on the growth and also addressing inequality. But here, the growth has got more potential to address the poverty than focusing on the inequality measures. So, first focus on the growth, improve the overall economic pie, then you focus on the redistribution. Through redistribution, you address the inequality. So now it's time to focus on the growth than to focus on addressing the inequality, because inequality normally it happens. Then based on that many examples they are given inequality, whether it can be avoided in the economy or it cannot be avoided. Then what is the people's opinion about inequality? For example, the survey says that the people, they want to address the inequality according to the level of impact it will have on their financial prospects. For example, the inequality when it's addressed, when you want to redistribute, redistribution will have a positive impact on your financial levels, then the people are supporting. But when the redistribution is going to have negative impact on their financial level, then they are against the redistribution. So in this angle, many examples are given in the economic survey. That's not that we not give more importance, but this is the crux of economic survey. What is the connection between the growth and socio-economic outcomes, then between the inequality on the socio-economic outcomes. Then the survey chapter 4 argues for focusing on the growth. But actually this thing mentioned in the survey, they are given some evidences, they are arguing in this way, but it may give room for some counter argument also, because inequality should also be addressed. But here they are given evidences by comparing this with the socio-economic outcomes. Redistribution is possible only when you have the wealth in the economy. To have the wealth, you should have the growth. So having the growth by addressing the inequality is a challenge. Having growth by addressing inequality is a challenge. So leaving this segment, you can focus on the growth. You can help the people to come out of the poverty. When they come out, then you can focus on the redistribution. But now, first we focus on the growth. So it is purely mains perspective, not the prelim-based points. So this topic, entire topic itself, is a main-based, okay, not a prelim-based points. That's all. Okay, this is the crux. Okay, only we got the connection between the inequality and growth and the socio-economic outcomes. Now comes the chapter 5, which has got more relevance with respect to prelims as well as the mains. We got plenty of points in the chapter 5, which can be asked in the preliminary examination and also in the main examination. We are going to have a look at the chapter 5. So what the chapter 5 is all about means, chapter 5 talks about the health importance in the economy. It talks about the health sector and the importance of healthcare. So the chapter is titled in such a way. Finally, healthcare has taken the center stage of an economy. In that way, the chapter is titled, Healthcare Takes Center Stage Finally. And many beautiful comparisons, because we have, if I ask you what is the equity in healthcare in India, what is the variation in cost between the government hospital and private hospitals, poor quality of healthcare is witnessed in government hospital or private hospital, and what is the level of human resources we have in the healthcare sector, whether do we have adequate number of doctors or nurses or midwives, whether it's adequate according to the global average or not. Then what about the information asymmetry? Because of that, what impact we have on the health sector? Many more things are discussed in this chapter. So here we are going to learn more points, because in chapter 3 and 4, it was based only on the two plots. Chapter 3 is based on sovereign rating, now much more. Chapter 4 also we did not have much more to discuss. We developed the topic based on a single point, inequality and growth, that's all. But here we have got many more things to be learnt, both on the prelim as well as the main perspective. So we're going to start the chapter. Now first we are beginning with the basic importance of health sector in an economy, because this point is witnessed or emphasized during the recent time. So we understood this. Then we need a requirement of agile infrastructure, because now we got the pandemic. In the future, we are not sure what type of issue may hit our economy. We must be prepared enough for occurrence of any type of event. So not the same type of the thing will happen in the future. In the future, we must be prepared enough. So in this way, the chapter starts with this argument. Now, next thing is, you all know about the National Health Mission in our economy. So we have the National Health Mission, and then we know about the Jan Arogya Yojana, or we call it as the Ayushman Bharat. So the chapter 5 says that both the things are essential. Both the Ayushman Bharat should be continued, and also National Health Mission. National Health Mission, you know that we initiated the National Health Mission or launched it by subsuming the National Rural Health Mission as well as the National Urban Health Mission. So whether it's time to wind up the health mission, or whether it's a time to continue it or not. The survey places an argument by saying that we got the need of National Health Mission to be continued in our economy, because we have witnessed many scenarios where the health mission has transferred positive benefits on the healthcare of the people, and also it had some spillover effects on our economy. All these things are mentioned in this chapter. So it gives the supporting argument saying that health mission should be continued along with the Ayushman Bharat or Jan Arogya Yojana. In this way, we are giving the importance to the National Health Mission of our country. And then look at this point. It has provided equity, and then to the poorest people, prenatal or postnatal care, everything, institutional delivery, everything got significantly improved after the health mission. So we got many supporting data in the coming slide. And then here, this is an important point you should remember. If we increase the public expenditure from 1% to 2.5 to 3%, then what impact this will have on the out-of-pocket expenditure is. From my pocket, how much money I am spending. When the government increases the expenditure from 1% to 2.5 to 3%, then this will bring down out-of-pocket expenditures of the people from the 65% to 30%. So it will drastically reduce the expenditures on the people side. So government should do more expenditures on the health. When the government is doing more expenditure, then people's individual expenditures will be gradually, or not gradually, dramatically it may be reduced in the economy. This point you should remember. Kindly take down this point. What is the connection between the public expenditure and between the out-of-pocket expenditure? Even for a smaller increase from 1% to 2.5 or 3, it has got the potential of bringing down the out-of-pocket expenditures from the levels of 65% to 30%. Okay. The next one. So out-of-pocket expenditure, how it goes down. So with the increase in the out-of-pocket expenditure, domestic general government health expenditure. So the point what we have mentioned is explained here. And comparative analysis between India, Bangladesh, Vietnam, Indonesia, it's mentioned. Okay, we are at the, so when the level is low, when the domestic expenditure is lower, then out-of-pocket expenditure is higher at the lower levels. So when you increase expenditure, so automatically you could be able to bring down the out-of-pocket expenditure. So it's mentioned here. So at the low level of expenditure, you have the witness the higher level of out-of-pocket expenditure. Then we are given some cross-country comparison. So we come to an understanding that when government increases expenditure on the health, then out-of-pocket expenditures can be brought down. Now comes the next one. So you know about the communicable diseases and non-communicable diseases. For example, the COVID is an example for the communicable diseases. So the survey makes the point saying that as we are suffering from the communicable diseases, we should not keep our entire focus only on the communicable diseases, because the trend shows that non-communicable diseases are on the increasing trend. So here this one is a non-communicable, this one is a communicable. So now we have witnessed the communicable does not mean that we should not keep our entire infrastructure focused only on the communicable diseases. We should keep our focus on the non-communicable also, because this is the trend for the non-communicable diseases. In the future, we may have more problems from this side. Maybe non-communicable, but we should have the infrastructure, health infrastructure, and then research facilities, and then everything, okay, the doctors, everything, and then treatment facilities, and then equity, everything we should focus in this area. So it is one of the point which you could remember in the prelim perspective. Communicable diseases should be given equal importance also. Then comes next one. So you all know about the e-Sanjeevani, which was introduced by the government, which is a patient and then doctor interaction. So during the pandemic time, okay, so we got the huge increase in the interaction between the doctors and the patients through the e-Sanjeevani platform. And then here we observe that e-Sanjeevani penetration is more in the areas of high internet penetration. And then the survey argues that when you have the good internet connectivity, you are able to have higher number of e-Sanjeevani interactions. So to do that, you should focus on the internet connectivity in the rural areas also. In the remote areas, by bringing the internet connectivity, you are able to provide the healthcare services to the poor people by helping them to interact with the doctors. So e-Sanjeevani is showing, the trend is showing positive correlation with the internet connectivity. That is the next thing. Next one. So this is the diagram which shows the increase in the number of patient-doctor interaction under the e-Sanjeevani platform. So increase in the number of cases after its launch, and this is having a direct proportion with the internet connectivity. Higher the connectivity, higher interaction. So it is giving the access to the poorer people, especially during these times when we have the less interactions. So it is acting as a solution, or it provides solution to the much healthcare needs of the people. So this shows how the interactions got increased. The next one, consultation versus the internet penetration. As we have seen already, higher the internet penetration, higher is the consultation, higher is the interaction. So now it's up to us to focus on the internet penetration. When you do that, automatically you could be able to deliver the healthcare services in the country. So state-wise comparison is given. Students, all the charts are everything is given to you in the soft copy already, which was sent to you. You can have a look at those examples and all the explanations and examples given in that soft copy for further understanding. Then, so here we have some global comparison. We have got the comparison with the European region, African region, and region of America, and then with the India. So what is India's status? So here we have the two scenarios. One is, so this one, the dark red, it shows population with household expenditure on health more than 10% of the income. So the first one, dark red, shows the population with household expenditure on health more than 10% of the income. Second, which one is the pink one? It shows the population on healthcare expenditure more than 25% of the income. So here, for example, when you take the case with India, so here this is the percentage of the population with the household expenditure more than 10%. This is the percentage of the population with the household expenditure more than 25%. Where we are standing when we are compared to the global average. This is the global average. Global average, for example, this is a 13 means, so here we are almost 4% higher than the global level. The same angle here we are 3% means here we are 1 plus 1, level 1 higher than the global level. So what is the percentage of the population which are having expenditures above the 10% of the income and above 25% of the income. So it is a graphical representation showing where India stands when compared to the global level. So here we are understanding that when we are compared to the global level, we are having plus 4% higher than the global benchmark and plus 1% higher than the global standards. The next one is, so this slide talks about the equity in the healthcare, how the equity is delivered in the healthcare. For example, this talks about the 2004 scenario and 2018 scenario. 2004 is the dark red, the thing which is given in the dark red. 2018 is the thing which is given in the pink color. Now this example says that, for example, first one is the inpatient care. In the inpatient care, first one is for the poorest people, what is the improvement? And for richest people, what is the improvement? Now look at the example, look at the diagram. So here, for the poorest people, they are able to get more facilities in 2018 than when compared to 2004. Which means, look at this diagram. So they are able to get more access. Poor people are able to have more access. But look at this second one. Okay, here the bars say that for the rich people, there is we don't have any much difference. Or else here we have a drop in their access, which means the improvement in the facilities has reached the poor people more than the rich people. The same angle, when you look at the outpatient care. So here, the poorest of the poor, they are able to have improved facilities when compared to the richest people. Rich people, they got the access to the facilities got decreased for them. Which means in all scenarios, poor people are able to witness improvement in the access. So here they got improvement, here they have the improvement, here they have the improvement, and then here the poor people have the improvement, and here they have the improvement. But here, look at the rich people, they got the drop in their access. Here also they got the drop in the access, which means equity is more for the poor people than the rich people. Poor people is able to have access to the better health facilities in India when compared to the last 15 years. So this is the understanding what you should have. For example, when a statement is given, rich people are able to have more access to the healthcare facilities than the poor people in India. Or the last the 10 years trend indicates that the access to the healthcare facilities is more for the rich people than the poor people, means the statement is wrong. So the poor people are able to have better access to the facilities. The credit goes to the healthcare missions and also to the Ayushman Bharat. Okay, like that the document argues. So this is the understanding what you should develop from this slide. Now comes the next slide. Healthcare spending. What is the healthcare spending is when compared to the global level. When compared to the global level, the spending what we do in our country is very, very low. Which means we are standing at the level of 1% or 2% when compared to the global peers which are spending 6% or 7%. Which means we are at the very, very lower level. And then when you compare this expenditure across the states, we witness that the per capita health expenditure across the state is higher, whereas the percentage of expenditure when compared to the gross state domestic product is lower in our country. So when compared to the gross state domestic product, the percentage is lower, but the per capita expenditure is increasing in our economy. That is the two different zones what we witness in our country across the states. So those points are given here. So now first one is India is underperforming because we are spending less in the healthcare expenditures. So India's rank is 179 out of 189 countries in prioritizing health expenditure. So look at the point. We are very, very lower in rank. So where we stand is given here. Look at the ranking. So India is nearer to Sudan and then Haiti. Okay, so in this angle, okay, we stand. So we have to spend more in healthcare expenditures. So this is the growth rate of India, GNI per capita. Here the health expenditure, other countries and all, okay, so at the India's level, other countries are spending here at these levels, but India is spending at this level. So we got the lower spending in India when compared to the peers. Those who are having the same level of GNI per capita, they are spending more than India, but we are underperforming or we are spending less when compared to the global peers. Next one, healthcare spending per capita increases with the GSDP. Per capita healthcare spending is increasing as a percentage of GSDP, but here the healthcare spending as a percentage of the GSDP decreases. So these two variations you should understand. The per capita spending is increasing, but as a percentage of GSDP is decreasing in across the states in India. Two variations we have, so it's mentioned in the following charts also. So this indicates that richer states are spending lower proportion of their GSDP. When compared to the population level, the per capita GSDP is per capita spending is more. But when compared to the overall GSDP percentage, the expenditure is very lower. So when compared to the state GSDP, which means they are spending less when compared to the GSDP. So as a result of the population figure, we are able to get higher per capita per capita health expenditure spending. Now look at the example. Per capita spending is comparatively better. Per capita spending, this is the GSDP per capita and then health spending per capita. But when you take the next one, percentage of GSDP, here the thing is we are going down. So which means this one is in the trend which is ascending, but here we are underperforming. As an overall gross state domestic product is considered, we are not spending that much. Okay, these two differences you should remember. Next one is healthcare professionals. Where do we stand? For example, according to the World Bank recommendation, minimum we should have, not minimum, average. What is the average level? We should have 44.5 people. 44.5 people for 10,000 people. For 10,000 people, at least, average figure is 44.5. At least the lower level is 23. We should have the 23 means this includes doctors plus nurses or midwives. So the overall percentage should be 44.5 for 10,000 people. The at least lower level, if you are not able to achieve 44.5, you should have the minimum level of at least 23. So this is the global recommendation where we are standing, where our states are performing. So that is the thing which we're going to learn in the next slide. Where do we stand? Look at the point. So this is less than minimum density, which means I told you 23 is the lower level, minimum level. Then next one is the less than adequate density, which means I told you that 44, which means less than 23, these are the states. Then the states between 23 to 44.5, these are the states. Only here, Kerala is the only state where we are able to have healthcare professionals more than the requirement, which means 44.5 is the requirement per 10,000 people. Kerala is the only state in our country where the required number of healthcare professionals is more than the average requirement. Average is 44.5, but they are able to have 65. But here look at the figure in Delhi, we have the 41 and then 34. Here look here, 10 in Jharkhand, Bihar we have 10, in Odisha we have 13, and then Uttar Pradesh we have 14. So the minimum level requirement is 23, but we are not able to fulfill. We have got the lower healthcare professionals. So this is the point what you should understand with respect to the preliminary examination. The requirement of healthcare professional is not adequate in India, or whether it is adequate in India. In this angle, when the statements are framed, you should have the understanding that it is not adequate in our India. Only exception is Kerala is the only state. So when the statement is given in the preliminary examination, many states in India are having the healthcare professionals more than the average. So no, that's a wrong statement. Only Kerala is the only state where we have the healthcare professionals more than the average. I think students, we can stop at this point, and then we can continue with the remaining segments in tomorrow's class. Okay, and then okay, let me stop with this, and then tomorrow. So today we have completed up to 5 chapters. Chapter 1, we dealt about the COVID pandemic and then the measures taken by the government. Chapter 2, we talked about the government measure regarding the government's approach regarding debt to GDP sustainability, what we should do. Then third chapter, we talked about the sovereign rating, how what impact this will have on our economy. Then fourth, we talked about the inequality and growth, whether they conflict or converge in the economy. Then the fifth one, okay, we are talking about the healthcare sector. What is the scenario? Here we got 10 more slides pending to be covered in the healthcare sector, which we'll do it in tomorrow's class. Then after doing that, we'll get into 6th one, 7th one. 6th chapter, 7th chapter will be more technical, like the second chapter. Like the debt to GDP, in that angle we'll be learning about 6th and 7th. Then 8th one, it's not that much technical, about the innovation. The 9th one is about the Jan Arogya Yojana. There it's about the comparison between the states. 10th one is about the bare necessities index. This is, then with that we'll be finishing the volume 1. Then we'll be stepping into volume 2. Volume 2, we will come across more preliminary based statements or many facts or any data. But here we don't have any data. It is like a class. We understood about the concepts, that's all, from the volume 1. Normally volume 1 will not be taught much in the economic survey sessions. But here, as I'm going according to the chapter, so I given the importance to the volume 1, all the chapters. So which will play a role in the mains, so which will understand. So when you write answers for the mains questions, okay. With this, let me stop today's session. Pending things we'll do it in tomorrow's class. Thank you, students. If you got any doubts, you can ask. Otherwise, let's wind up the session. Okay. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you. Deva, any doubts? So nothing but students, per capita, for example, you know that the total expenditure divided by the population is called as per capita gross expenditure on the health, which means the total expenditure what you are doing, when you divide by the population, you come out with the per capita expenditure on the health. Per individual, how much you are spending. So per individual, how much you are spending is good, is comparatively good. But when you take the figure of what is the total expenditure of the state, or what is the total GSDP of the state. From the total GSDP, when you take the healthcare expenditure, which means gross state domestic product, when you take the overall healthcare expenditure, it is not in the comfortable zone. So that is the thing which we have seen in the survey. Okay. Any other doubts? No, crowding out means actually crowding out is a scenario where the private people, they will lose their opportunity for investments. For example, when the government is competing with the private players, then in the competition, privates may not be able to compete with the government, because government's borrowing is always attractive in the market, because people, they will trust the government, they will invest more on government securities. When the government is borrowing, privates or private, and the government and privates, when they both borrow at the same time, then the people, they will bet more on the government. So they give their money only to the government. So the private people securities may remain unsubscribed in the economy, or the amount of money what we have in the economy may not be adequate to the private people. So this scenario, we call it as a crowding out. Crowding out means when the government borrows through the fiscal route, or through the RBI, when they ask the RBI to borrow on behalf of government. So it's either through open market operations, whatever monetary measure by RBI. Government may ask RBI to borrow on its behalf, or else, same angle, government through RBI, the government may resort to any, for example, not within our country. When the government goes for the external borrowing, then at that time we may not have the crowding out in our economy. Then other countries, they may have the impact in their country. So in this angle, when the borrowing is done within our country, we will be having the crowding out. When we do the borrowing away from our country, or through you would have heard about overseas sovereign bonds. What is the advantage of overseas sovereign bond means? Overseas sovereign bond is the one which will avoid the crowding out impact in the economy. Overseas, you should go external. Okay, that is the answer to your question. Which one? Ranking means the different indices. We have different parameters based on the different indices. So different, we have the agencies, we have got different institutions which are involved in the ranking. For example, innovation, different institutions, you will come across now, like that. We have different things. Then we got our own in our country. We got Niti Aayog, which is also involved in the ranking procedures. So in this angle, we got the, based on the what index we are talking about, then only we can answer which institution is doing that. In general, we got the many institutions across the entire country and across the world also. Poorest, when they are having the more access to the healthcare system, nothing but it talks about the command what the government has got over the healthcare facilities in our country. For example, National Health Mission, it talks about the one of the tool or one of the measure taken by the government to provide healthcare facilities to the poorest people, because the poorest people, they are able to access the services at low cost from the government. So and then you take the Ayushman Bharat, so or Jan Arogya Yojana. So here you are able to deliver high quality services to the poor people. Government is supporting the poor people. So how they are able to access means with the help of the government intervention, not because of their capability. They are able to get the facility because of their because of the government intervention. Intellectual anchoring is nothing but it is intellectual support. So we used to say the support given through intellectual evidences, that we call it as intellectual anchoring. So we have a kind of opinion. This opinion makes me to this is actually it's restricting my move. So here I am giving some counter argument. I am giving intellectual anchoring, which will help me to act according to my interest or according to the need. Earlier we are having obstacle, but here we are giving intellectual anchoring or intellectual support, which helps me to act according to my need, because it is against the prior opinion what I had before that. Before that, so it's nothing but it's not a term. It is normally we used to say intellectually we are arguing, like that. It's not about any particular terminology in economics. Healthcare spending. Healthcare spending, I told you that the per capita spending is more, or it's more means it's not good. When compared to the overall expenditure of the gross state domestic product, the per capita spending is better than the overall expenditure. Overall expenditure, when the health expenditure, when compared to the gross state domestic product is lower than the expenditure on the per capita basis. That is the point what I mentioned. I think why many of you got confused. Did I go fast during that particular point? It's a very simple point now. Okay. Which one? Growth and debt relationship is actually when the growth increases, then the debt should subside. Debt should come down. When you are having the more growth in the economy, then debt will come down. That is the growth. That is the relationship that we witnessed in the from 1991 then till now. I think Arpit, are you going to ask any doubt? You are online? No. Okay, fine. No. We don't have any plans till now for that. If we have, you will be informed. Fiscal policy is nothing but it is the approach of the government of a country with respect to its financial management. Whether where the government is going to spend, where the government is going to generate the income. This is about it is the fiscal policy. Fiscal policy means it is the stance of the government. It is the approach, it is the choice made by the government to regulate the fiscal mechanism. It is called as a fiscal policy. How where you are spending your subsidies, where you are spending your expenditures, where you are generating the income. It's about the fiscal policy. Yes, for India, for the rest of the world, when the growth improved, the socio-economic outcomes improved. But when the inequality improved, the socio-economic outcomes, it came down. It did not improve, it came down. So it diverged for those countries. But for India, when the growth increased, so we got the improvement in the socio-economic outcomes. Same angle, when there is an increase in inequality also. Increase in inequality means the outcomes should not improve. But socio-economic outcomes are improving for India. So here, which means we got more government intervention by giving the health facilities, education facilities, IMR, MMR. In all areas, we are able to have improvements with the help of the government intervention. So we need not worry about the inequality. We may better focus on the growth. That is the argument. Pro and neutral. Okay, two things can be, both the things will be there. Economic survey, it won't be against the government. Depends upon the fiscal policy, positive or negative means depends upon the economic situation, where we are. Whether the economy is contracting or expanding, according to that, we frame the fiscal policy. Repeat the question, growth and? No, actually we say that, okay, the relationship is positive only when the IRGD is negative. When the IRGD is positive, we may not be having the same impact. Government intervention. Poorest have more access means because of the government intervention. Intervention means the healthcare facilities given to the poorest people at the low cost facilities. Yes, when the government borrows, definitely there will be change in the interest rate. That I told you that when the government borrows, we'll be having the corresponding impact. When the government borrows, the money supply will be reduced in the economy. So when the money supply is reduced, then we'll be having the more demand for the money. When you have the more demand, then the interest rate will increase. That is a normal perception what we have. But here the economic survey makes the counter argument, saying that it's not the case always. So from the historical evidences, we come across that sometimes when the government borrows also, interest rate may come down. So but here, this is the one point what is mentioned in this chapter, but you should have a broad view about these things. What is the normal thing is when we have the more demand, then we'll be having the higher interest rate. When you have the high interest rate, then correspondingly we'll be having the impact on the government as well as on the private people. So this understanding you should have. You should connect the dots in this way. It's up to the government whether to abide the. It's ranking is not the thing to be followed. It's to be complied. It is a thing which gives idea about the performance. Sometimes it motivates, sometimes it disincentivizes the people. Over.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yes. You can ask.
So, sir, you have just answered the abiding to the rankings. And is there any specific reason of why being downgraded, or in other ways, who was
Ranking
behind
means
it
the
and why
ranking
it
you
is?
asked about the sovereign ranking. Ranking, are you asking about sovereign ranking?
No, it's for ranking.
Okay, you proceed. I couldn't actually get your doubt. You proceed with your doubt.
No, why we have been downgraded when we are placed in the top 5 list? Why is there any specific reason of being?
No, they have downgraded means they are following certain parameters. What is the parameter they follow is, for example, when the country is borrowing more, so this country is borrowing more, but they are not comparing with the IRGD. These things they are not comparing. So we are having our own perceptions about our economy. So we say that our fundamentals are good, but they got their own standards. So here the survey says that the mechanism what they have is not more objective. It is subjective, which means here when economic like US or economic like Germany or economic like UK, they are also okay within the top 5 only. But when they are borrowing for the advanced economies, you are following different. You're not applying the same logic. You're following different logic. But the same level of borrowing is done by the economy like India, like underdeveloped economies or emerging economy. You are following a different rationale. So it is not that much objective. It is more subjective. Moreover, the mechanism is not transparent. So that is the argument of economic survey. So the economic survey says that the mechanism must be more transparent. It should not be more subjective. It should not give space for more interpretations. So it should be more clear. So when the fundamentals are good, when you are acting as per the limit, no default history, then it should not be ranked down. Okay, this is the thing what you can take out from that chapter.
Or do we want to take a global look, sir?
Yes, global look means the survey says that because this is the argument mentioned in the survey. But when same question when is thrown at towards the credit rating agency, they may have the counter argument. So here it goes on. There is no end. So we are saying that we have shown the evidence in the past because we think that the downgrade may have the impact on the foreign currency flows in our economy. So this may have some short-term impact. So we are giving the argument from our side. So we got downgraded means it's their choice, but we are strong enough. So it is the information what we are giving to the global investors. So you can invest on India. India is an investment grade only. Moreover, the downgrade given by them has not made India to speculative grade. They have made downgraded within the investment grade only. So this is the reply what we are giving to the global investors to be taken in that sense.
Okay, got it. Sir, and one more request is to ask the admin to share on the economic survey volume 1 because we have received in volume 2. Can you ask them to share the volume 1?
You got only volume 2 material.
Yes.
Okay, you haven't received volume 1. You want us to share the volume 1 material also.
Yes.
Yes. We'll do it. Sure. Arpit.
Thank you so much. Sir.
Thank you. Arpit, you can proceed.
Sir, you told that counter cyclic action will provide as a fiscal multiplier. So what is fiscal multiplier? We know what is money multiplier, but what is fiscal multiplier?
Is nothing but fiscal multiplier. Money multiplier means you know that you got 100 rupees in the economy. 100 rupees goes to the bank. Bank keeps the reserve. Then the money comes out in the economy. It's a money multiplier. Fiscal multiplier is the money what the government borrow in the economy. When the money gets invested, how the money gets multiplied. The example I have shown, 100 rupees is the money borrowed by the government. 100 became 112 because of investment. This 12 is the multiplication. And from the 12, we got our own money of 4 rupees. In this way, now next time when the government, in the picture example it was given, the cycle repeats. Next time when we borrow once again 100, so the 100 will get multiplied along with the 12 what we have got in our economy. Which means the money what you borrow, when it leads to output, when it leads to the productive capability, when the money is spent only in the revenue format, it won't lead to multiplier. When the money gets converted into output, when the money gets converted into the growth, then we may have the corresponding multipliers in the economy.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, if possible, please share your email ID.
Yes, you can take the mail ID. Mail ID is manikandan.sr@shankarias.in. manikandan.sr@shankarias.in.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, students, I think, okay, I have answered all your doubts. Let's meet on tomorrow's class. Thank you, students. Thank you. Thank you all.
Recording stopped.